Well, good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock. It is April 8th, 2021. And today we have two agendas. The first agenda is going to be the induction of Molly Young as a new councilwoman, which is wonderful, and I get to take my oath of office as well. But before we do that, we'll do a call to order. Right.
Vice Mayor Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Brennan.
Here.
Councilmember D'Ambra.
Here.
Councilmember Prince.
Here.
Councilmember Young.
Here.
Do I have approval of the first agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So we can do the invocation and pledge led by
And that's me.
Councilmember D'Ambra.
Father, bless everyone gathered in these council chambers and those present online, that they know this is a safe place for our residents to freely express their opinions, a place where ideas matter. Father, give this council ears to truly listen to our residents as we seek to serve their welfare and true needs, the wisdom and confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together as a unified team even when there is honest disagreement, to resolve any disputes gracefully as we work for the common good. Finally, please watch over our first responders who work selflessly to keep everyone in our village safe. This we pray in your name.
Amen.
Please stand.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So agenda item number 1 is the council oath of office.
We're going to do Molly first. So Molly, if you'll stand, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Molly Young,
I, Molly Young,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and government of the United States
and government of the United States
and of the state of Florida
and of the state of Florida
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
domestic or foreign,
domestic or foreign,
and that I will bear true faith,
and that I will bear true faith,
loyalty, and allegiance
loyalty, and allegiance
to the same,
to the same,
and that I am entitled to hold office
and that I am entitled to hold office
under the Constitution,
under the Constitution,
and that I will faithfully perform
and that I will faithfully perform
all the duties
all the duties
of the office of council member seat 2,
of the office of council member seat 2,
on which I am about to enter,
on which I'm about to enter.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Your daughter up here for us?
Oh, okay.
Every time we have a new council member sworn in that has children, when they're sworn in for the first time, we like to give the children a little gift as well. Kyle, you're next. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Kyle Stone,
I, Kyle Stone,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, protect, and defend
that I will support, defend, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and government of the United States
and government of the United States
and of the state of Florida
and of the state of Florida
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
domestic or foreign,
domestic or foreign,
and that I will bear true faith,
and that I will bear true faith,
loyalty, and allegiance
loyalty, and allegiance
to the same,
to the same,
that I am entitled to hold office
that I'm entitled to hold office
under the Constitution,
under the Constitution,
and that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
perform all the duties
perform all the duties
of council member,
of council member,
seat 4,
seat 4,
on which I am about to enter,
on which I'm about to enter.
so help me God.
So help me God. All right, so the fun part now. The Village Council reorganization, item number 2. Mr. Davis, do you mind filling us in here on this part here?
Thank you, Councilmember Stone, and congratulations to you and to Councilmember Young on your being sworn in as council. Okay, so the next order of business is for the 5 of you to select one of your number to serve as mayor for the next year. Any one of you can nominate anyone, even yourself, or someone can make a motion. If you make a nomination does not require anyone to second it. It only requires the person being nominated to accept the nomination. If there's more than one nomination, then we would vote on them in the order that they were made. Alternatively, if any of you chooses, you can make a motion to appoint someone as mayor. If it's a motion that you make, a motion, as you know, has to have a second. If there's a second, then there would be no additional motions until that motion is taken care of. So the process, whichever way you choose, is up to the 5 of you as to whoever wants to either nominate someone or make a motion to appoint one of you as mayor.
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Frank DeAmber for mayor.
I'll second.
So you have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. DeAmber to serve as mayor of the village for the next year. I would ask if there's any council discussion on that item. If there's not, then we can call the question and we can have a vote. All in favor of the motion, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations, Mr. DeAmber. You've been appointed as mayor of the village of Tequesta. The next item on the agenda is the appointment of one of the remaining 4 of you to serve as vice mayor of the village. Exact same process in terms of nominations versus a motion, except this time it would be for vice mayor. Obviously, Mr. DeAmber is not eligible, but the remaining 4 of you are eligible either by motion or nomination to serve as vice mayor.
Do I get to nominate somebody again?
You may make a motion.
I'm just kidding. I would like to nominate Kyle Stone as vice mayor, please.
Do you accept that nomination, Mr. Stone?
I do accept that nomination.
Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, then I would call for a vote on the nomination. All in favor of nominating and appointing Mr. Stone as vice mayor of the village, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion, or the nomination is passed unanimously. Mr. Stone, you've been appointed as vice mayor of the village of Tequesta for the coming year. Congratulations.
We do have an agenda number 3, council remarks. Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to defer and let Councilwoman Young and yourself, as just re-entering your terms, let you guys go first, and I'll kind of save my remarks till the end.
Fair enough. Mrs. Young, welcome.
Thank you. I'll just say I'm very humbled and honored that I've been elected to this position, and I'm just very excited and look forward to getting to work. Thank you.
It is an honor to serve, and it is an honor to be able to represent the council another year as the vice mayor, and I do appreciate that opportunity.
Welcome, Mrs. Young.
Thank you.
Welcome, Mrs. Young's family. And I look forward very much to the next year. I know up here we have a multitude of talents and knowledge and very successful things coming our way. And I'm very much looking forward to it. And I hope that people stay involved because we do it for our residents.
I'd like to congratulate both of you, Molly and Kyle, for your re-election and stuff. I'm looking forward to working with you again, Kyle, for the upcoming year, and Molly the upcoming year as well. At the end of your first year, I'll be on my way out, so it'll only be a short tenure that we'll get to work together, but I look forward to doing that as well. I'm going to keep my comments very short tonight because it's like we've got a room full and we're going to have a lot to talk about, so let's get down to business. I'm ready to go.
So I did want to make a couple of remarks. First, I wanted to welcome and congratulate Councilwoman Young as she takes her place on this council, and Vice Mayor Stone on the start of his second term. You know, at our last council workshop, we discussed the high standard that Mayor Brennan had set for anyone sitting in the council or in the mayor's chair. Councilman Prince noted that the expectation of council going forward is that whomever the mayor was, the council would expect that individual to continue to meet that high standard. I'm humbled that the council has entrusted me with the opportunity to do so. My commitment to the residents, village staff, and this council is to do everything in my power to meet those expectations. If I may, I would like to take one moment to talk about the role of the council. Everyone sitting on this dais here this evening is here because of their love for the village of Tequesta. We're here to serve our residents. We're different people who at times may be united in our positions on an issue, and at other times we may have different points of view. Bringing different perspectives to the table, and at times even playing devil's advocate, to be sure an issue has been well thought through, is an important part of making the very best decisions in the interest of our residents. Ultimately, we're all united by our desire to preserve the best of Tequesta and to manage change so that it further enhances all the reasons people have chosen to live here. Change is inevitable. All you have to do is look at the change in our community, the change in the demographics, the presence of the young families, our new recreation center that's rapidly rising from the ground, which I believe will be the heartbeat of our community going forward. There are and will be numerous opportunities going forward for all of us together to continue to build on the foundation of our predecessors, to make Tequesta the most desirable place to live in South Florida. I'm honored to work with every member of this council, our village staff, and our residents as we work to achieve that vision. And with that,
Thanks, sir. So we'll adjourn for no more than 10 minutes as they rearrange the tables or seats up here, and there's some cupcakes for celebration, and we'll get up and go. So, thank you.
So my seating chart is Kyle will be here, Molly, that one. Frank will be here. Lori and Bruce over.
I figured you guys would stick around. Well, listen, I don't think there's anything too controversial, so let's do
Not he'll tell you.
7:30, 7:45, hopefully we'll be out of it. All right. By 7:30, 7:45.
Grandkids, do they come?
That's not Frank.
Everyone's excusing everything now.
You know about that. You got 3 of them.
Mayor, may I get a signature?
Got that? Because that one has more of a shape, so it's harder to.
So how are you?
No, you
No, it's like, look at this, it's falling off.
Lori. What does he want to reconfigure?
Let me get a picture of you in front of your
Where's that tower going up there? Cove.
Tower.
That AT&T tower they're talking about putting up. Have you heard about it?
I mean, yeah, but I don't know where.
I don't either. I mean, I've heard about it, but I don't know where they're talking about putting it. Somewhere here in the neighborhood. But I know a lot of people kind of up in the arms about it, but hell, I don't know where they're supposed to be put it.
I haven't gotten the chart yet where they're going to put it.
Yes, Jerry.
No, it's the 8th. You see pull item number 8? Are you aware of the comic cards? Yeah, there's a bunch. Don't keep. It's about the cell tower. Okay. Okay. I think I'd sit in. No, seriously, I think it's sit on it so you kind of like get one of these kind of
Just kind of sitting, yeah, like otherwise she's like, you know, prowling, everyone knows her, but she's really.
The market's been interesting because that was some of the values of the location that's going on the value of that. So it's kind of curious.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I don't mind.
It's gonna be a long night.
Maybe not. Good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and start with the regular council agenda. It is, I was trying to avoid that. Okay, so it's 6:20, and as I said, this is the start of the regular council agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. So the first item on our agenda this evening is the presentation of the Brennan Mayor Award. At the last council meeting, we approved a resolution that created this award in honor of Abby's service to this village in her 8 years as mayor. So Mayor Brennan, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, congratulations, Mayor Diembra.
Thank you
Vice
very
Mayor
much.
Stone again. And of course, Councilmember Young, Councilmember Prince, and Councilmember Brandon. It's a wonderful council, and it's going to be really terrific with all of you on there. I think Lori said it best, there's a lot of talent on this dais right now, and I'm excited for all of you. And you know, I'm not sure I properly expressed my profound gratitude last month when you voted to establish this award, because quite frankly, I was completely overwhelmed by what had just occurred. I had to go the next day and rerun everything on Facebook or on YouTube because I didn't remember anything. I was just something. So allow me to rectify that now by saying I am so very grateful and honored that you did this, and well above and beyond anything I could have imagined. So Lori, for the record, would you please read into the record the criteria for awarding the Abby Brennan Mayor Award, which you also asked me to develop.
Yes, we do.
Just saying.
We're not done.
Okay, this is the criteria that is established by Resolution 1121. The Abby Brennan Mayor Award will be presented annually to an individual resident of the Village of Tequesta who has demonstrated dedication and service to the village and who has made positive impacts to and for the Village of Tequesta and/or the state of Florida. The ideal candidate for the award is a Tequesta resident who possesses strong moral character and who is known to demonstrate and embody honesty and integrity in service to the community. The following criteria will be used by the city mayor to select the Tequesta resident who will receive the Abby Brennan Mayor Award each year. An individual who continually volunteers his or her time, dedication, and talents to the Village of Tequesta and its citizens, making the Village of Tequesta an excellent place to live, work, and visit. An individual who has shown a willingness to work with the Village of Tequesta residents, who is enthusiastic about the village and its citizens, and who works continually toward the betterment of the community. And an individual who has specifically made a positive difference to the health, safety, and welfare of residents of Tequesta, or has generally made a positive difference to the health, safety, and welfare of residents of the state of Florida through their service to municipal, educational, and/or other civic, religious, or community-based organizations. The inaugural Abby Brennan Mayor Award will be presented by Mayor Abby Brennan at the regular council meeting on April 8, 2021. Each year thereafter, the city mayor will present the award during the regular village council meeting in March.
All right, we've set the bar high there as well. But, you know, I was mayor for 8 years. So one might say that I would have had 8 chances to name 8 different people. But, which is helpful right now, except I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that at all, but I just thought I'd mention that because you won't have that opportunity, the mayor, next year, because there will only be 1 year involved. So, however, there are 2 residents that I have known well for during these 8 years who equally fit the rigorous criteria for this award. Interestingly, each suggested the other when I spoke to them individually, and neither knows what I'm about to do. No doubt each is their own unique and special person. However, they both share some of the same traits. Each is an impeccable character. Each has donated significant time and effort to the Village of Tequesta over the span of these 8 years. Each loves this village and works tirelessly on its behalf. And each has made a profound difference in the lives of our residents and those beyond our borders. I simply could not make a choice of just one. So I am taking the liberty that you will not have the opportunity to do going forward. And since it's impossible to select who I should name first, I will announce them together, beginning with ladies first. Mrs. Patricia Watkins and Pastor Paul Beresford are my selections for the inaugural 2021. And sincerely, Pat was talking to me about Pastor Paul. Pastor Paul was talking to me about Pat Watkins, and I just couldn't, go in any other direction. So this was our inaugural award, and I am delighted. So, Lori, do we have some plaques here? I know you're kidding. Where's Pastor?
He was here.
I know. Who's going to cry the hardest? Me.
goodness sake.
Wow.
Oh.
Well, I was not expecting. I expected you to listen to my suggestions.
Well, the next day I said,
Yes.
tell you who it's gonna be, right?
Yes, you
It's gonna
did.
be that.
And I said, no, can't do it.
Oh,
So I'm glad that
Nobody spilled the beans.
Thank you. Well, yeah, how did that happen? No one leaked anything.
Congratulations to both of you. I don't think anybody would argue that you two both deserve this award, and Abby, thank you for presenting it. We have a second item here, another presentation. Village Manager Allen is going to present our building director with an achievement that very few in his profession have realized. So, Jeremy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I have the honor of presenting this award or recognizing Mr. Jose Rodriguez. He's obtained his Master Code Professional Certification from the International Code Council, and he has chosen to be interviewed by the Building Safety Journal. This is a worldwide publication honor to be published in there, and so he's helped put Tequesta on the map, so to speak. Jose has over 30 years experience in construction industry and is licensed in all trades for inspections and plan reviews in the building, plumbing, electrical, mechanical, and fire. Jose holds 40 ICC certifications, and from somebody who has taken one of those certifications, they are not easy. I mean, they're usually a book full, 400 or 500 pages of certifications you have to go through, and he has 40 of them, so it's just an amazing feat. So during the past year, in response to COVID, the building department was able to change all the inspections and plan reviews to entirely virtual process. The Building Officials Association of Florida, the BOF, reached out to municipalities to see that they were dealing with a pandemic and continuing their work process. Jose posted to that organization on Tequesta's virtual process, and there was a huge response of posting from other municipalities. Many municipalities reached out to us. Even some came to train with our staff on how that process works. Jose's recognition by the ICC through both the Master Code Professional Certification and the publication of Building Safety Journal, and his ability to deal with change within any circumstances reflects positively on the village. Jose's next goal is to achieve the certification from American Planning Association, which I have sat for that, and it is very difficult as well. We will now have a short video that was prepared for Mr. Rodriguez.
The ICC family of solutions is a complete package of model codes and services to support all 50 states, U.S. territories, federal agencies, and other countries that use our knowledge, our science, technologies to build sustainable and resilient communities. The Master Code Professional, MCP, is the highest level designation the Code Council offers. It is the gold standard for code administration professionals. The Code Council has certified thousands of individuals, but only a small select number have obtained this high level of achievement, just over 900 individuals. This special group is awarded an MCP certificate recognizing this outstanding achievement. To obtain this level of certification requires and demonstrates commitment to the profession, diverse knowledge of codes, and a high level of self-initiative. Mr. Jose Rodriguez achieved this gold standard and became one of about 900 Master Code professionals in the world. It is quite an accomplishment, and it is a reflection of Mr. Rodriguez's commitment, not just to his career, but to the public he serves, as he set his own standard of excellence at the highest level. On behalf of ICC, I congratulate Mr. Rodriguez on achieving the highest degree in this chosen profession.
I'm Brennan, the office manager for the Village of Tequesta Building Department. I'd like to say congratulations to Jose on this very distinguished achievement of becoming a Master Code professional. You are a great role model and an asset to the village. Through your mentorship, I became a certified floodplain manager, and I look forward to learning more from you in the future.
Hi, my name is Ahilia, and I work at the Tequesta Building Department with Jose. With his guidance, I was able to achieve my permit tech certification in a very short period of time. I'm very proud of you, Jose. We all look up to you, your guidance and your encouragement to get whatever certification we want to put our mind to. You encourage us all
ways to get more education is, as you say, something that no one can take from you. Congratulations on your success. I can't wait to see where your next success story leads.
Hi, I'm Michael Bobkowski. I'm the Code Compliance Officer here with the Village of Tequesta. I work under Jose's supervision within the building department. And Jose has been an amazing mentor to me throughout my entire time working with him. He has been there through my code compliance certifications and has given me the support and continues to push each of his employees to further their education and achieve what you may have thought was impossible. Jose, you have been an amazing boss. I congratulate you on your new certification, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Hi, my name is Tessa. I work for Tequesta Fire Rescue, and for about a year previously, I worked for Jose in the building department. Anybody who knows Jose knows that he has tremendous work ethic and a mastery of building code. He's a natural-born teacher, so whatever knowledge he has, he's happy to share with his team, which is to the benefit of the entire Tequesta community. Congratulations, Jose, on this tremendous accomplishment. Kathy Hannon from the Human Resources Department here. Congratulations, Jose Rodriguez, Building Director Extraordinaire.
My name is Dennis Rick. I work in water distribution. I used to work in the building department as a code enforcement officer. I would like to congratulate Jose on his recent accomplishments. I think Jose is a huge asset to the village of Tequesta. He is a well-rounded building official with all his knowledge.
Hi, I'm Deborah. I work with the village manager. I'm his executive assistant. And I just want to say, Jose, congratulations on an awesome job. The village is very fortunate to have you here sharing your expertise with the residents and businesses, as well as with the rest of us. I am truly happy that we work alongside of one another, and as you always say, best day ever.
Let me say congratulations, all your hard work has paid off. I'm glad you're pushing me to get my education through my bachelor's degree in urban design. Congratulations again, and I love you so much.
I'm Teresa Rodriguez, Jose's wife. If you know Jose, you know he doesn't understand the meaning of the word can. If you tell him he can't, he'll prove that he can. Jose, over the past 30 years, I've seen you become a roofing contractor, a general contractor, back to school to get your master's degree, become a building official, and now master code professional. I'm so proud of your accomplishments. But I know you, and I know that once you set a goal, you're going to meet that goal. So congratulations, and love you.
Jose Néstor Rodriguez. Congratulations on attaining your excellent designation. It is the gold standard of coding, but what they need to know is that you're also the gold standard of what an employee should be like. I am very proud to have you as both a friend and a colleague. Congrats once again.
Hi, Jose. Congratulations on getting your Master Code Professional certification. I'm very, very happy for you. I know that in all of our dealings, whether it was when I was on the council or as a resident, you've always been nothing but professional and honest and fair. And I appreciate you, and know that the village appreciates you. And I hope that you continue to serve the village in the future. And I look forward to seeing you again around town soon. Congrats again.
Jose, congratulations on this amazing accomplishment. Once again, you demonstrate your commitment to your career, to the members of your staff, and to the entire village of Tequesta. Thank you from all of us.
That was a little longer than we like, but you can see that a lot of people have a lot of good things to say about Jose, and I can't say anything, I can't even do it justice. Jose set a new bar for customer service in the building department, and we thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think it's fair to say that prior to Jose's arrival, there was a bit of turbulence in the building department. And he has got the ship sailing right, and I think all the accolades were well deserved. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. We do have one item that's been pulled by the applicant, item number 8. So that will be deferred, I think, and probably till May, I believe. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion?
Second?
Everybody's happy with the agenda? Nobody?
I am.
We're not looking to pull anything? Okay. Vote. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we're going to move on to communications from citizens. I know there have been some cards submitted. Lori, do we have any cards specific to any of the agenda items? No. No, okay, so we'll hear everybody at this point in time. Okay, just as a reminder, you are limited to 3 minutes, and when you do come forward, please give us your name and your address, and then let us hear what you want. What would you like to say to this evening? So who's first, Lori?
We have Marcia Nielsen.
Marcia Nielsen, 94 Beechwood Trail. Those of you who have been on council before remember that I used to do your 2 cents and I'd give you 2 pennies, so I'm making 10 cents tonight. Number 1, Constitution Park. Please consider replacing the red walkways with wood chips as they have in Carlin Park's 2.5-mile walk. Most of us who walk Constitution Park, those walkways, we're older, and if we fall, we'd like to fall on something a little softer than the tar or the base that you have now. Also, it's a better ecological use. Number 2, Memorial Park on Seabrook. Last month it was suggested that the property be put up for sale. I am really opposed to this idea for many reasons, including that we have little public green space in the village. Rather, I suggest that the council look to resources in the village, including your own environmental committee, to work with the recreation department to develop the property into a passive park. Number 3, the logo for the recreation center. Some of you know I call him George. I've emailed each of you expressing my support to have our Native American logo on the outside of the new recreation building. This logo is on every other municipal building, and consistency should be maintained. I like the feather logo, and I believe that you can incorporate that with the Native American in the interior of the building. Number 4, I watched and listened to the workshop, and it brings the bridge to mind, unfortunately. And listening to the presentation, I really realized that now that we are conquering COVID, we are going to be in lockdown here in the village when that bridge is closed. This will impact all of us, including businesses and our elderly residents, including myself. And it could be a way that we develop a stronger community. Again, I suggest using community involvement, especially former Mayor Brennan, who has close liaisons with our business, to investigate ways to cope during the construction. Finally, a closing thought, and this kind of ties into what Frank said. Helen Keller once said, "Alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much." Those of us who sit in these audiences at meetings and we go online and do it through Zoom, it isn't because we don't have another place to go. I'd rather be at Tequesta Brew myself. But we do it because we care very much about the village and its future. And I know there are others in our community who don't sit here and mouth off the way I do, but would like to get involved if asked. So my challenge to you is ask. Thank you.
Marcia, thank you. Lori, who's next?
Mike Aitken.
My wife's going to speak for me.
Hi.
Welcome.
Andrea Aiken and my husband Michael, 35 Bayview Road. And we are here and representing several of my neighbors also from Shady Lane and Bayview in regards to the proposal of the AT&T wireless tower that's going in. So I'm going to kind of read collectively what I put together from several neighbors in our community. And I want to thank you first and foremost for your time and congratulations, and thank you for everything you do, so I don't forget to say that. My husband and I and a lot of the neighbors have only recently become aware of the potential of the AT&T 38-foot wireless cell tower being installed across the street from our home. We learned of this in a letter. Well, actually, I learned from another neighbor, but we just received a letter mailed to us addressed to homeowner from Draft Pros. Draft Pros is acting on behalf of New Singular Wireless, ATT Mobile. The letter calls it a small wireless facility. Again, it reaches 38 feet high. I would be amiss if I didn't say that I have a huge personal interest and concern as to this massive structure being placed directly across from our mailbox, our own safety concerns and our own property value concerns. I am sure that would be the case for anyone with this in the line of fire from their own home. It goes beyond that for me and my family and husband. We love our neighborhood. We love the community of Bayview, Shady Lane, and the village of Tequesta. No one I've spoken to feels that this is appropriate in our residential community, and we hope you share in this. While the demand and need for 5G is part of every one of our daily lives, we can attain this by placing the needed tower in an area that is not a residential neighborhood, not disrupting the entrance of a community park, not an immediate eyesore for all driving and biking through, not a neighborhood that will have to endure through the construction of such a utility, and not a neighborhood that will be exposed to the ongoing year-round maintenance and repairs of such a structure, not a location so close to children and pets and parents who, right or wrong, have so many concerns about the impact this may have on their health and well-being. Not a location that would so severely impact the property values of the homeowners sitting underneath this unsightly tower in the sky. We are asking the village for awareness of our concerns, as well as your expertise and guidance as to how to approach and assist Draft Pro/ATT in finding an alternate location, and we understand that this has already been done once, that does not adversely affect the quality of life of 30 Tequesta homeowners. Thank you.
Perfect timing. Thank you. You're correct, you're not alone in the concern, not only for the infrastructure, but the actual activation of 5G. So we do plan on having this probably on a workshop agenda sometime in the next month or two, where we'll delve into this a little bit more. We've got more research to do, but it is on our radar, very much aware of it. I think there will be other speakers tonight that will address this as well. But just bear in mind that we are aware of it, and we will be working on it. Lori?
Lydia McLear.
Hello.
Good
My
evening,
name is
Lydia.
Lydia McLear, 59 Birch Place. I'm here today with a group in the audience who advocates for responsible wireless technology. I'm going to read you a letter addressed to Tequesta Town Council regarding the dangers of 5G and how to stop 5G from coming into our town. The letter is a little bit longer than my allotted 3 minutes, so my son Nolan will read the conclusion. I'm a resident of Tequesta, Florida, and I'm writing regarding the rapid rollout of 5G antennas very close to homes, which poses the threat of causing biological harm to humans, animals, and all living things. You are on the precipice of enabling technology that will widely blanket our living environment, which is not safe. Currently, there are thousands of scientific studies that demonstrate a clear potential to cause serious harm and even death to your constituents, family, and friends. The body of evidence dating back decades is very compelling. It's imperative that the rollout of 5G be stopped, delayed, until rigorous independent scientific studies using the planned higher frequencies and new signaling characteristics intended for 5G demonstrate that this radiation will not do harm to humans, animals, and plants. 5G antennas close to living environments also poses a threat to our privacy, real estate values, and local aesthetics. The telecom industry has spent billions of dollars marketing this dangerous technology in order to profit without regard for our safety. The FCC, which should be protecting us, has failed as a regulator due to the fact it is mostly comprised of former telecom industry executives or telecom affiliated individuals. Please recall 4 decades of tobacco industry claims that cigarettes were safe. Telecom is using the same playbook to voice this life-threatening Trojan horse on us. A report by Harvard University SAFRA Center for Ethics, Captured Agency, How the Federal Communication Commission is Dominated by the Industry it presumably regulates, affirms this. An important difference between 5G and cigarettes is that one can choose to smoke cigarettes. But when it comes to 5G, the public has not consented to be irradiated 24/7. Andrew Campanelli is a lawyer and litigator and expert in federal, state, and municipal law regarding wireless technology infrastructure, including 5G. He has successfully represented hundreds of municipalities across the U.S. in preventing unwanted macro cells, small cells, DOS systems from being installed in towns. Too many towns and cities are being told by their attorneys that their hands are tied when it comes to the installation of 5G, convincing town officials that they have no other choice to allow these antennas in their communities. Mr. Campanelli has assured me that this is absolutely false information and that municipalities are being intentionally misled.
Lydia, did you want to hand it off to your son at this point?
Okay.
Okay. And again, please state your name and your address, please.
Hi, my name is Nolan McClear. I'm from 59 Birch Place. In 2017, the island of Palm Beach took action and passed legislation that can prevent 5G in their town. Palm Beach is the only locality in Palm Beach County that has had the foresight to enable local legislators to regulate wireless facilities. Across the country, many state and local ordinances have been passed to regulate and control wireless facilities, including 4G and 5G small cell antennas, and several states have passed legislation calling for a review of the science before proceeding further with 5G. In Tequesta, we must follow their lead. I urge you to retain Andrew Campanelli. He specializes in wireless technology and can assist in stopping 5G, 4G densification in Tequesta. There are many highly credentialed scientists, attorneys, and doctors who are involved in the attempt to prevent a potential catastrophic situation with 5G. The International EMF Scientist Appeal has been signed by over 250 experts in electromagnetic fields from 44 nations, of all whom are scientists regarding the biological effects of electromagnetic fields. Worldwide, at the local level, people are protesting this unsafe technology as well. Brussels, the location of the European Union, has rejected 5G, with the Brussels Environmental Minister, Céline Fromalt, saying, "I cannot welcome such technology if the radiation standards, which must protect the citizens, are not respected, 5G or not. The people of Brussels are not guinea pigs whose health I can sell for a profit. We cannot leave anything to doubt." In the UK, citizens have taken down cell towers under the cover of darkness, and in other cases, globally, antennas are being burned down. Globally, citizens in large numbers are now protesting with internationally coordinated 5G days of action. Lloyd's of London and Swiss Re, which are one of the 2 largest reinsurance companies globally, have refused to insure damages to human health from exposure to electromagnetic fields. This alone indicates that we must insist on clear, objective, independent science proving 5G's safety before considering initiating small cell in our neighborhoods. One thing I'd like to add is that I'm actually about to be a computer science major at the University of Florida this upcoming summer. I'm not a Luddite. I advocate for future and new technology. But one thing that I want to make clear is that I'd like to advocate for safe technology. We can't understand something that we can't see, can't smell, almost can't even measure. How are we going to put this in our communities and homes when we don't know the effect on our kids and our community and our people? So, thank you very much. Please consider it.
Thank you for your input. Lord?
Hi,
Good
I'm
evening.
Debbie Wallace from 68 Birch Place. I'm now wishing I'd written everything down, like they all did, but I didn't. I want to echo what they all said. Lydia's my neighbor, and one of the things that kind of got my attention was when I found out that Easton, Connecticut has banned 5G until there's further research. That means a lot to me because before living here for 21 years, I was from Connecticut and most recently worked in Easton. It's a very small town, just like we want to stay small, not big buildings. You know, we don't want to get too big, just like that. And I have to admit that I actually had to research 5G. I don't know exactly what it is. I know it's faster. I know it's stronger. Do we need this? Do we really need this? I mean, some of the research that I've read, and I've given you, I don't know if they got the articles, I've given some articles for you to just look at. If there's a shred of evidence in any of this, why would we want to just jump on the bandwagon and rush to do this? I, for one, feel like we're in the middle of a pandemic, and 5G is probably really low on people's lists. Maybe they're thinking like I was, oh, it's like a new iPhone, you know. We throw around, geez, I was happy when we got alpha dial-up. I mean, I thought I was good then, you know. We just don't need to be any faster, in my opinion. Not at the you know, the deficit of people's health. And I just thought it would be wise and prudent if before this gets passed, then maybe we put it up for a village resident vote. Maybe do a small pamphlet that would have credible pros and cons, you know, and let people take a minute, take a breath, and think for themselves. I personally, you know, believe, as we all do, hindsight is 20/20. We don't need to look far on the news to see constant legal lawsuits for products that have been released into society, which everyone thought was safe, then come to find out 5 to 10 years, you know, not so much. And well, here's your $500,000, sorry for your loss, you know, type of thing. I really feel like we just need to take a moment and not rush into this and do our due diligence. If I were in your place, I wouldn't want to be the ones to go ahead without everybody else's consent, or at least, you know, time for them to acknowledge and do their own due diligence, and then have it come back 5 to 10 years later that this really is something. So I just ask that you kind of tread lightly on this and bring it up to all the residents and put together some credible information, pros and cons. That's basically all I have. Oh, one last thing, sorry. I do have a friend who's very, very, very susceptible and has a real problem with Wi-Fi. She has to have the Wi-Fi turned off at her house. If she doesn't, her head burns and her hair literally falls out. I mean, literally, her hair falls out. So, I mean, that's just one person. We don't really know, you know, all the far-reaching effects. So, anyway, that's all I'll say. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Do we have anyone else, Lori? Oh, I'm sorry.
My name is Shirley Jackson. I live at 12875 Barrow Road in Juneau Isles. I am an example of a person who is electromagnetically sensitive. If I was outside in the garden, my voice wouldn't crackle, my hand wouldn't shake. But when I come in here, that's what happens to me neurologically. So there are, and the other kids, I was the Department of Safe Schools coordinator, research project manager, and the first grant developer for the District of Palm Beach County Schools. So I have a high commitment to kids and their health and safety. I will let you know also my context. My first wonderful husband was a Pratt engineer, councilman in Palm Beach Gardens and mayor of Palm Beach Gardens. I just heard, I'm like moved to tears, sorry. I just heard what the front line, you know, integrity and service to people that you serve is all about. Let me tell you, it was such a boost after the last year of things that we've been, you know, rattled with. Also, what I hear is that you have, I can
take your time.
Hold acupuncture points, and it actually improves. You can even hear it immediately. My voice improves. I have found that I can affect the electromagnetic fields around me like an acupuncturist does. So you are between a rock and a hard place. As a grant writer, I read federal legislation all the time. I've become very familiar with the Telecommunications Act. You are very, very limited in what you can actually do. And what you can do is very powerful. Don't let anyone tell you you can't do a thing. Andrew Campanelli has had over 7,000 cases. And you know, it sounds like, oh, he's a lawyer, he litigates. What he mostly does is he works with towns and municipalities, and he works with them to rewrite their ordinances so that you have the most possible local control that is of the highest priority to you. I highly recommend. I'm very active with the Environmental Health Trust. I want you to know that on January 25th, the Environmental Health Trust with others et al. Had their first open hearing for the suit that they brought against the FCC. I'll summarize. They stated that the FCC had not followed the administrative rules in relooking at human exposure. No human exposure guidelines have been changed since 1996. Think about that. The IEEE has come out saying that the bait and switch about 5G, it's not faster, it does certain things differently. I just encourage you all to look and there are people out there that will generously give of their expertise. I personally have done needs tests. Needs is a #1 thing that is required. And what I found by looking at 30 different cell sites and taking the measurements that you can get, I have professional meters, is that approximately 2/3 of those cell sites, there is no need. And therefore, the FCC would see that as a valid reason for not putting the siting there. But there's lots of material I'd be glad to share.
Again, thank you. And yes, any material you have that you can provide to us would be welcome. And as I said earlier, we are listening, we're hearing what you're saying, and we're aware of this situation, and we will be looking at this, like I said, later on in a workshop over the next month or two.
You have a great attitude, and the service that you provide to the community is quite obvious. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Do we have anybody online that is waiting to make a comment or?
It does not appear so.
Okay. All right, then we will move on to communications from council. Councilman Prince, would you have anything for us this evening?
Well, I think it'd be kind of hard for me to say anything else about Jose that hasn't already said. But when I moved here about 6 years ago, Jose was like the first man that I met here in town because I was remodeling my house, so I had to deal with Jose back when I first got here. And I have to say that he was an extremely very professional guy, and at the time you were the assistant, I believe, when I first came here, and of course now he's head of that department. And I just want to thank you so much for you being so professional and helping me through the process of my renovations and stuff back 6 years ago. And just wanted to thank you again for all the things that you do for the village of Tequesta. Thank you.
Councilwoman Brandon?
Yeah. Jose, wherever you are, congrats. You know I used to be in your office before I was on council. So I enjoy our chats about codes and fence lines especially, yes. Other than that, in village-related items, the Environmental Advisory Committee is being submitted for the Environmental Stewardship Award through Florida League of City. And the submission deadline comes up soon, and then we will find out. Other than that, I am good.
Good. Councilwoman Young?
I just wanted to say, I know Earth Day is coming up on April 22nd. I know we've done stuff in the past. I don't believe anything is planned for this year. So I would like to suggest maybe the EAC could partner with staff and recreation and try to plan something. If it's too short notice, maybe try to do something in May.
Okay.
That's it.
Vice Mayor Stone?
So yeah, a couple things. Yesterday I was able to, I was outside my office and police chief was in his car and one of the schools was walking across the street to go to the park, and he was able to stop in front of traffic and let them walk by safely as they went. And it's always great to see that involvement, Chief, especially coming from you, leading the group that way. On the way back, the kids came back, and we had an e-bike that we just approved, and one of the officers on that e-bike. He did the exact same thing. So it's kind of cool to see that involvement. So thanks to credit to you and your staff. I want to make sure that someone's going to talk about the antenna. Is there anybody going to make any comments about that coming in at all? Or because I know that we've looked at this, we've talked about this over 2 years ago, and then the state did some things, and just maybe an update from somebody would be nice. I don't know if that's Keith or...
Well, the only thing I'll say is we haven't seen the permit yet for that. I know that it was sent to us as an email form. We have not seen that. We don't know the exact location. We don't know all the details of 38 feet. I mean, that's, that's new details that we don't know. The building department has not seen that. We will, of course, look at it and scrutinize it and do what we can to knowing what the public has, input. But, and Keith really, when we get any kind of permit applications, Keith always reviews those to see what.
So we knew this was coming.
In terms of the application, I was, a general question came across my desk last week about the permit. I have not, again, same with the manager, I have not seen the permit application. I don't know the specifics of it. What I do know is that you do have code on your books right now that is, in my opinion, in compliance with both state and federal law. It has height restrictions, it has distance separation restrictions, it has location restrictions. You've got a lot of things in your code right now, which, if this permit application is actually submitted, it will be certainly reviewed against the provisions in our current code. But that's the limit of what I know as we sit here tonight.
Didn't the state make some changes a year or two ago, and with regards to right-of-way? And
right, it's I just had it up on my it's the Florida Advanced Wireless Infrastructure Deployment Act is the name of the legislation that you're referring to, and that's exactly what it talked about, was placement, co-location of small wireless facilities. That's a defined term in the statute. That micro facilities, that's a defined term. Those mean things in terms of the size of the antenna and the size of the support structure and that sort of thing. And that's the legislation that you're referring to that went on the books a couple years ago.
Okay. I mean, I just found out today where they're planning on putting it, and I think it's disgusting. And so that's just coming from my own personal side of things. So I'd love to continue to talk about it. If there's anything we can do.
We will. I think Lydia has been forwarding information to me, which I've passed on to Keith, and we had some discussions, and I've had discussions with the manager as well. And again, that's why I said earlier, we're aware of the problem. We know that there's an issue here. What flexibility we have in order to deal with it, I think that's what we've got to be able to determine, and that's going to take a little work in advance of the workshop. But we are going to delve into this, and we are going to pursue it.
That's all.
Okay. All right, and I'm good for tonight. So we're going to move on to the first report, which is from the village attorney.
My turn again?
Your turn again.
Thank you. Again, congratulations, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, Council Member Young, and of course, Council Members Brennan and Prince. I'm looking forward to a great year working with all of you. We had what I thought was a really good orientation with Ms. Young, the clerk. And we went over everything from sunshine law and public records to voting conflicts and ethics training. And I know you've all suffered through that with me as well. But I only mention it because I think it is a worthwhile exercise to have a refresher on those. And I would just remind all of you, as we discussed with Councilmember Young, anytime you ever have a question about any of those things, sunshine, records, do I have a voting conflict? Do I have to make a gift disclosure? What ethics training am I behind on? Please, give me a call, give the clerk a call. Always remember we're here to help you get through all of that. So I just mentioned that because, again, I thought we had a pretty positive orientation earlier in the week. So I don't have anything else to report to you unless you have any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, Keith. The other reports we've received written copies of, but does anybody have any questions or comments with respect to the reports we've received from the manager, police, fire, or utilities?
I have a comment. The police department, I wanted to just thank you guys for going to Whitehall to discuss safety tips and trespassing. I know they had some questions, so thank you very much for going there.
Good. Anything else? Everybody good?
I was going to ask Jeremy, if you don't mind, an update on the Recreation Center. I know that there's been a handful just of issues with supplies, maybe in the steel side. I even know, I think GM closed a couple facilities currently today. Is that going to have any impact on the timeline or even cost with the build-out?
So the short answer is yes. I will credit, Greg and even Hedrick Brothers Construction, just the, really scrutinizing, everything that comes through from the timeline and from the, I guess, the ordering of supplies and whatnot. But from everything that I've read, everything I've been told, we're in kind of an unprecedented time when it comes to construction. The costs are up, I've heard 300% with wood. I mean, some of the steel is, the cost is, skyrocketed. We were able to lock in some prices for steel. However, there's a huge backlog on construction projects, and so we're going to be affected time-wise. I mean, there's going to be, I hate to give a time yet because we haven't got our actual manufacture date for that steel, but we're probably looking at a significant delay just because of building materials. And I think probably Ms. Young can probably attest to that because she does this for a living as well. But we are trying to work through those. We're doing everything we can to stay on budget, on time. But I will lead you to, we're probably going to see some delays and probably see some increased costs, but we're doing our best to stay on there. And I hope that answered your question. I don't have any definite time frame on delays because obviously we're going to try to make it up wherever we can.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I just wanted to hear that it's actually a possibility. So, okay.
Jeremy, on the steel trusses, my understanding was that there were two separate orders that were involved. One was, I understood, was still on time. But I guess it was the one for the gymnasium that was, is that the one that was delayed?
It was the bar joist, not the truss. It was the bar joist that are that are I guess the specific things that we're having trouble. And I think there's only a handful of steel manufacturers that can provide those. I think we've exhausted every one of them, and I think the best time frame we're looking at is July for those, but we planned on having them in May. We're hoping that we can at least lock in the July date. So you will see that there's already, even with that estimated date, we're still a month or two behind already if we get them in July. So we're working through that. I know Greg is always, I don't want to say always over there, but I bet you Hedrick Brothers would say always. He's over there daily, constantly monitoring, keeping me up to date. I meet with him weekly. I mean, everybody's working to try to meet that January deadline, and I don't know that we'll do it, so I just want to kind of preface that and set you guys up for that.
I know they're working hard to fulfill it, so we'll keep our fingers crossed. Okay, moving on. Old business, we have none. New business, the first item we have.
Can I say
Yes.
something real quick?
Yes, sure.
Just, I didn't really give the manager's report, but that's okay. We are going to have an Earth Day celebration April 22nd. I know you asked about that a day or so ago. Talking with Greg, we do have one. It came out on Facebook. All the details are coming. It'll be in the park. We're going to probably give out some trees and some other things kind of similar to what we did last year. The details are coming with that, and I'm sure the rec department would welcome any help or support from the environmental committee if it comes to fruition.
Okay.
Sorry. Thank you.
No. Anything else, or are you good?
No, I'm good.
You're good, okay. Okay, so new business, the first item is the special exception request. It's a quasi-judicial hearing. So Keith is going to administer the oaths. One procedural change I'd like to recommend to the council. We've had a long tradition, long before I was on the council, that when we have ordinances or we have resolutions, that we usually open it to council comment before we open it to public comment. And I'd like to reverse that process and open it to public comment first so that we have the benefit then of the public input when we go to discuss it amongst ourselves. So if everyone's comfortable with that, we'll start.
I think it's a great idea, Frank.
We'll start making that change
Yeah.
tonight. Okay, Keith.
All right, this is agenda item 9. This is an application for a special exception by Nancy Burke Harvey, PLLC, for in the mixed-use district to expand a private school. This is, as a quasi-judicial proceeding, anyone who's going to be testifying to the village councils needs to be placed under oath so that your testimony is sworn. I can swear you all in together. With just the two of you, do each of you swear or affirm under penalties of perjury that your testimony to the village council will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you very much. And then I just need to come back to council and ask you, each of you, if there have been any ex parte discussions that you have participated in regarding this matter, site visits, any discussions with staff. Those would need to be generally disclosed for the record at this time.
No, sir.
I ran into Mrs. Harvey today at lunch.
Okay?
I drove by the site.
Okay. Then with those disclosures, Mr. Mayor, we can proceed with the item, and I'll turn it back to you.
Nilsa?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. The application that is in front of you is for an special exception use pursuant to section 78-180 on the mixed-use district. So the applicant is requesting an additional 2,563 feet of a square foot building. So the applicant, as you all know, she already is on that plaza, commercial plaza. She has been there since 2019, and she has come in front of the council in several occasions, basically adding square footage, adding the awning. So, and now is in front of this council requesting an additional 2,563 square foot building. So if this is approved for the special exception use, please note the total square feet of their school or academy will be 5,660 square feet. So this is basically growing the square footage. And then on the staff report, we included a detailed review of the background when this started, what was the initial square footage, and we also review each of the criteria. So one of the things that I want to provide a final remark is that in terms of safety, after the special exception use application process, the Harvey Academy is required to apply for a building permit, including a fire plan review. The Fire Safety Department will ensure that the application meets fire safety codes. Since there is a change in occupancy classification, the current use of the suite is changing from office space to school. So basically, this this plaza has right now these office spaces. So now she's going to grow into those office spaces. So the occupancy is changing from office to school, and rightfully so. The building department, the fire department will be ensuring that safety is part of it. So Mrs. Harvey is here. Do you have any other?
Good evening, Nancy Harvey, 165 Citadel Circle. And good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor.
Good evening.
And council members. Congratulations to you all. Are there any questions to my application?
I don't have any.
Okay.
And the only question that I would like to just make on the record is, I know you have the two other locations. Is
Right.
there any, what are your plans with those other two locations outside of this application?
I want to move those two locations
Okay.
to Main Street, which is what this application's for. For a variety of reasons, I did separate them. I separated my lower school because of COVID to add more space, and I'm hoping that this pandemic is ending soon, and by all reports, it should be back to almost normal by the start of school. For me is August 2nd. So they are still going to be in a separate unit right down the hall, but it just makes so much sense to have us all under one roof. My teachers are more supported by me. My students are better behaved because I'm there. It works so much better for everyone. Right now, I'm back and forth every day, and 2 of my teachers are too, so it just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. The only other question I have is Paradise Park there. How
Yes.
often do you use that?
Right now, the middle and high school are there, and they are out there every day for recess for about 15 minutes, and then PE on Fridays with the licensed PE teacher.
Do you think your use of that park would increase by moving the other?
I do.
Okay.
I do. My intention is to have recess for the lower school and the upper school separated.
Sure.
So maybe the upper school won't have recess every day anymore because they're going to have other activities, but the lower school needs to run every day for like 15 minutes. So they'll be out there. And then PE, of course.
Okay. I'm going to open up for public comment if we have anyone who would like to.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have some questions.
Yeah.
No. The recess was one of them, so thank you for bringing that up. And then with this, is kindergarten through 5th grade would be relocating?
Correct.
So I didn't see a traffic flow or pickup drop-off plan, but since it is the younger, if it gets to the point, I know plan review and fire review would handle this, but we just really want to make sure we're paying attention to a safe traffic flow situation, just because that area is not set up for a school, and hopefully the plan review teams can help you come up with a plan for that. So
I
just
agree.
wanted to state that.
Yep. Right now, I plan there's 2 arrivals and 2 dismissals. The older group, 6 through 11, will be arriving at 8 and leaving at 3. The younger group will maintain the same schedule that they have now, 8:30 to 2. So as far as the number of cars out there and students moving, it will be the same. It will just be twice as many times, if that makes sense. Because I do stand out there with a big obnoxious stop sign, and I direct traffic, and the cars pull up, the kids don't. I keep all the children up on the 2nd floor balcony, if you're familiar with the building, facing south, with a teacher up there. And when they see the first 3 cars that come up, then those 3 kids come down, and I escort them to the car. So they're all safely up away from the road until their parents come down. I take them 3 at a time. There with the sign.
That's it.
That's it. I was going to say, in speaking with some of the businesses there, I've never had anyone express any concerns or complaints about the traffic flow, but I agree with the safety factor.
Yeah.
I just want to be sure on that. So I do want to open up for any public comment, if we have anybody who would like to speak to this issue. If not, it's closed to the public. And does the council have any additional discussion on this matter? Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is passed unanimously.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations on the success of the school.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, next item is Ordinance 621, having to do with natural resource protection. Keith, will you do the honors here and read the ordinance for us?
Thank you, Mayor. This is Ordinance 6-21, Ordinance of the Village Council, Village of Tequesta, Florida, amending Chapter 50, Natural Resource Protection, Article 6, Water Protection and Conservation, Section 50-186, Cross Connection and Backflow Prevention, to allow revisions to the village cross connection and backflow prevention policy by resolution, finding that each and every other section, subsection of Chapter 50 shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing a conflicts clause, severability clause, authority to codify effective date, and for other purposes. This is first reading.
Mr. Hammond, I think you're going to be with us a few times tonight.
Yeah, I think I'm going 7 innings tonight. So this is the first. Yeah, so this first item is related to the village's cross-connection control program. We maintain an active program in accordance with state statutes. The cross-connection control program was implemented in 1990 through an ordinance. It has not been updated since then. Florida statutes has been updated related to cross-connection control has been updated multiple times since then. In order to update our policy, an associated housekeeping ordinance is required in order to do so. And so this is the first reading that's being presented to you tonight that will allow us to update that plan, assuming next month.
So this is strictly a housekeeping item?
This is related to the ordinance, correct.
Okay. Any comments, any thoughts? Okay, Going to open up to the public. Do we have any public commentary? No, close to the public. Council, you've already indicated no further discussion, so do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next item we're moving to is the resolution of the Village Council affecting the Environmental Committee. Lori, I think this is you.
This resolution is, last year, one of the council members had asked that I advertise any vacancies and when terms are open for our boards and committees, and advertise them to the residency as a whole. And so when I was doing that for next month's council meeting, I noticed that the environmental committee does not have any terms outlined within their resolution. So I put together the resolution along with Pete's assistance, and the committee does know that this is being placed before y'all for consideration.
None of the committee members wanted to be here to speak to this tonight? Do we have anybody? I know Mr. Bradford was here earlier.
No, none of them told me they were going to speak to it. They,
Okay.
I did receive, an email from Mr. Bradford, and he appeared to be in support of it.
Okay.
Most of them understand as well, and because it matches and it's consistent with our other committees and boards as well.
Okay.
Yeah, just we'll have to stagger, because there are 7 of them, so we'll have to figure out how to stagger them.
Well, I have that outlined
That's
in
what
the
I'm saying.
resolution.
Yeah.
Right.
But they don't have place seat numbers essentially.
They
or
do.
Member numbers, they did? Okay.
Yep, they do.
But not all of them understood.
Okay.
And it brings you into spirit with what the rest of the committees are doing.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next item has to do with the funding transfer. You?
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council Member Young. Just would like to congratulate you for your new positions, and essentially, this item represents the village's property, casualty, and workers' comp insurance for fiscal '21, and we are basically adjusting the budgetary accounts to reflect the renewal premiums that were previously approved by the council at the August 2020 meeting. There was a slight increase in the premium from fiscal '20. The increase was $3,122, and that increase was discussed in length during the previous meeting. This is slightly just an adjustment of our budgetary accounts to reflect that increase.
Okay, we're open for council discussion.
I just have a quick question. Is there any protocols or anything that are going to put into place to prevent this from happening next year?
Yeah, by far. What we're going to do is hopefully work with the broker to try to push up the date to get us this information sooner. I would say, though, that in terms of staff, the information was received around the cusp of when we transmit the formal budget to the council, and so it was kind of a bit disruptive to change the figures at that point, because we have to formally present the budget to you. This is the manager's recommended budget. And so at a particular point in time, we're a little bit skeptical in changing the numbers. So this reflects the premiums that were approved by council during the August meeting. But we get your marching orders, and we will work to kind of make sure that it is reflected in the budget for the upcoming year.
So if I could, just 2 points. So yes, we will make sure that this gets recognized in the future. We'll have a process, checks and balance. If it's not just me just asking to make sure we got it. Second part to note is that We're not appropriating money at this point. I know we've always talked about don't appropriate a fund balance. We did have some savings from the sand project of $73,000. So this is, with those savings, we're not appropriating out of fund balance. We'll still transfer $40,000 or $50,000 over to fund balance. So we're not appropriating, we're absorbing it from the savings of the sand project.
A couple quick questions. The increase in premium, is that basically due to our experience, or is it just due to the experience of the carrier in general?
It's a mixture. For instance, the general liability, there were some concerns surrounding the COVID-19 pandemic. Property and inland marine, that increased by 16%, and it was essentially due to increase in the schedule of values for the insured property. So it was a mixture of issues. Workers' compensation, on the other end, decreased as a result of decrease in our total wages. We have to project the wages each year, and it so happened that because of the transition to the Northcom for our telecommunicators, there was a decrease in that line of insurance. So it was a confluence of factor that led to the increase, 23,000.
One of those was the property values increased by
Right.
$4 million, and I know we did an audit on that to get a good accounting figure for that. Is our new recreation center, that's obviously going to increase next year probably
It will.
in a similar amount.
For sure.
I did also notice that 12% increase on general liability was anticipation of future COVID-19 lawsuits, and that is quite interesting to me. Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. Can I have a motion to move this forward?
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Mr. Hammond, you're back with us again. Item 13 is a resolution to adopt a change in the rate schedule for water.
Oh, is this the time? Is this where I get to help you? Yeah, it does. Which, you're not the roads, right?
I hope not.
Try that.
Thank you. All right, good evening again. This next item is one of the most, probably one of the most important that we'll bring to you as a department. Joining me tonight to go through this are Rob and Matt Orey with Raftellus Financial Consultants. Let's see if this is going to work for us. Perfect. Starting with a little bit of background about the utility. Our team of 22 professionals serves customers within the Village of Tequesta, Jupiter Inlet Colony, and portions of unincorporated Palm Beach and Martin counties. Utilities is inherently a capital-intensive industry with a lot of fixed assets. For us, that includes 14 wells, 1 water treatment plant, and 75 miles of buried water mains. The water utility itself is set up as an enterprise fund that's separate from the general fund, and it operates as a business solely from the rates and fees that are collected from the services provided. Those revenues come from, about half of those revenues come from Tequesta residents themselves, followed by our customers in Martin County, Palm Beach County, and then our friends at Jupiter Inlet Colony. When you look at the types of customers that we serve, it's probably not surprising to you that our single-family and multifamily residential comprise 85% of the revenues that come in, followed by commercial at 10%, and then other miscellaneous types of customers, including irrigation. The other half of the financial coin is expenses. The expenses to run a utility include operating, which include personnel costs, power, chemicals, supplies, insurance, etc. Another expense that utilities incur are capital costs, which are renewal and replacement investments into the infrastructure that it takes to run the utility. There's also debt service. The village has a very moderate debt position right now, and that's planned to continue. And that debt service is used to fund capital projects and spread those out over a longer period of time. In addition, there's a transfer to the general fund that's made every year. Those costs are split, fixed versus variable costs. The fixed costs for running utility make up the lion's share of the expenses, with the variable cost being the amount of chemicals that are used, the power supply, a smaller share. That's a little bit important, as the revenues that come in are kind of inverted from that. That's kind of part of the, inherently part of the rate structure for utilities. Revenues generated by the utility are enacted by the rates and fees through resolution by the council. While the financials are monitored closely, an in-depth financial or revenue analysis is typically done about every 5 years, sometimes a little more often if there's volatility in expenses or revenues. The last one that the village completed was done by PRMG Incorporated, which is now part of Raftellus, in 2015. And so in January of 2020, the village engaged with Raftellus to do another five-year financial outlook. And this analysis is done based on industry standards and accepted practices. With any project, it's important to heed the advice of Stephen Covey and start with the end in mind. And so with this, we started with the goals of establishing a sustainable financing plan to fully fund and operate the water system, to maintain a long-term outlook as we're doing so, to maintain fair, predictable, and competitive rates, promote the efficient use of a finite resource, and lastly, to ensure that our rates are legal and defensible, and by following industry standards and practices, that allows us to do that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Ori here, who's going to get into the details about the analysis that they conducted, and then we'll continue it and wrap it up.
Thank you, Matt. Mayor, members of council, good evening. It's a pleasure to be here today. It feels good to take that mask off a little bit.
Down is not.
The primary objective of the study, as Matt was talking, was to develop a sustainable rate plan and cost recovery plan. You want to make sure that your revenues for the operation of the utility system fully recover the cost of providing service. So what we did is we prepared a 10-year financial plan of the utility, looked at those components that Matt talked about, the revenues, the expenses, the capital funding, et cetera, come up with a rate implementation plan or need to bring to you today for consideration. Besides looking at the costs themselves, we also look at issues such as compliance with your bond documents, best management practice, where should you be fiscally? So that's considered as we evaluate the needs of the utility. By doing a 10-year financial plan that allows a lot of flexibility in terms of cost recovery, rate phasing, and whatnot, so it's really prudent to look at it over a multi-year versus a single year, because you can make, I think, better strategic decisions as you're looking over a multi-year period. Oops, went the wrong way. There we go. Some facts to remember as we're talking today. The utility has a little over 5,000 accounts, but almost 8,000 ERCs. An ERC is an equivalent residential connection. And it kind of shows you the size of the utility based on equivalent households. By way of example, single family, I'd be 1 ERC, but if that McDonald's over there has a lot of water use, that could be 10 ERCs. So it puts it all consistently to say, how large are you as a utility? You're almost 8,000 equivalent households utility, so you're not a little utility. Also, the average water use per residential customer is about 8,000 gallons per month. It does go up and down, but about 8,000 is the average, and we want to keep that in mind as we talk about rate impacts. You've made a significant investment in its utility system. The gross plant investment, when it was installed, is about $35.7 million. I'll talk later about that number. To replace that is a lot more, obviously. Your assets are aging, and as Matt said, you haven't did a formal evaluation for approximately 6 years now, so it's kind of time. The revenues of the system, as Matt mentioned, we do not rely on any general fund revenues, property taxes. The revenues that are derived for the system come from basically the rates of the system. They account for over 95% of your rate revenue. So maintaining a strong revenue calculation and recovery is very critical to the system since it relies so much on the rates themselves. Your rate resolution does provide for a price indexing adjustment. That's an inflationary type adjustment. It's very common in the industry. The Florida Public Service Commission allows that also with private utility rate making. That index ranges from 1.5 to 1.8%. And you can see in that green line, that's the projection of revenues for the 10-year period with the indexing. We are recommending that indexing continue. That kind of gives you an idea, 6.5 to 7 million, a little over $7 million over the 10-year period. The first priority of revenue expenditures is your cost of operations and maintenance. You have to pay for the cost of maintaining the system before anything else. That's the personnel, power, chemicals, and whatnot that Matt mentioned earlier. And as you can see on that graph, the blue bars with just expenses are rising faster than the rate revenues. The expenses we project are about 3.1% annually. Usually what our experience has been, the inflation, the rate of change of expenses is higher than inflation based on the type of business we are. A lot of emphasis on personnel, power, chemicals, that type of nature of expense. And it's pretty common, that rate of growth in expenses is what we're seeing all elsewhere throughout not only Florida but nationally as well. But the point I want to make there, if you look at the very last bar, you'll see a term called operating margin. That differential between the green line and the blue bar is the amount of dollars available to fund debt service and capital. So as that shrinks and you think about your capital needs, you can see there's a little bit of issue. You want to make sure that gets addressed in the rates. And capital is a major driver. I mentioned that your assets on the books are about $35 million. I did a real quick analysis to replace those assets. I indexed all your assets based on construction cost index, and a very preliminary replacement cost, you're going to replace all those assets today, are way in excess of $70 million. It could even be higher than that. That's the level in terms of renewals and replacements we have to think about. It's not what's in the ground today at the original cost, it's what do we have to do to replace those assets going forward. And as we all know, the cost to replace is much more than the cost originally installed. In the financial forecast, and that green table as you see there, the plan recognizes almost $28 million of capital improvements. It deals with water well production improvements, your wastewater treatment plant, which is your reverse osmosis facility, a very significant process for water purification, your water main replacement program, replacing the old lines. This has been on the books, gosh, for as long as I can remember coming here talking about water main replacement, asbestos pipes replacement, and we need to start that program. Almost 60% of your capital needs is for that program itself. Then you got some other items, minor capital, general plan, that'd be vehicle purchases and things of that nature as well. And that's the capital plan reflected in the forecast. The funding plan, about 46% of that, we're recommending the issuance of additional debt or borrowings, maybe a better word, which I'll talk about in a minute. About 55%, 54% is from, I'm going to call them internal sources. It's not only reserves and cash on hand, it's continued operations. Remember that operating margin I mentioned earlier? That's part of that, it's there as well. And the establishment and maintaining a capital fund. In our model, we have designated capital funds from operating funds. That's the capital funding plan. I did mention it requires the issuance of debt to levelize rates, cost recovery, and match the asset use to the funding itself. You can think those water line extensions, that's what it's for. They're long-lived assets. They're 50, 60-year life assets, so it's better to sometimes spread those costs out. The R&R account, renewal replacement, that stands for, or that capital fund, we're recommending that by the end of the forecast period, about 15% of your revenues is deposited or set aside for capital. Capital spending can be lumpy, but the deposits to reimburse capital should be level. Depreciation expense is level. It's a depreciation expense equivalent. You should fund this every year. There are a couple events happens. It gives you flexibility in how you spend your funds if you got this type of spending curve. Second, it avoids the issuance of debt or helps you finance debt if you need to by giving that flexibility as well. The key is not be debt burden, have a balance of what you're doing for capital. And I think the plan that the village and we've developed is good. Here is the projection of debt service. We have 1 year, a little bit of a bump up there to get past it. What we've assumed is the use of the state revolving loan fund program. It's a low interest rate type program. It fits really well for your water main replacement program. That's what we're funding, only those type of projects. Besides being low interest, and we assume 2.5% in this analysis, and actually the rate is actually a little lower than that right now. You do not start paying this debt until basically after construction is complete. And actually we got the debt starting a little bit early. So that's what you see there. You have existing debt outstanding right now, that blue, and that falls off about 2028, which is a real big benefit for us. So we can wrap the debt. As you can see, the debt gets bigger. As the blue falls, that debt rises per se. That's called wrapping the debt. If we can structure our capital plan so as the old debt falls and new debt comes on, that gives you rate relief and limits the amount of impact. Obviously, the timing, the sizing, when you do this will be based on your capital plan. We don't want to issue debt too early, but we've recognized that to fund the water replacement program. This kind of shows you that, this is that same graph. If I add the debt burden on top, as you can see, when we get to the end of the forecast, the rate revenues that's projected with indexing only is about approaching the O&M or expense and debt levels. The debt, the other thing I want to mention, Moody's S&P looks at the debt to net plant ratio. What that means is of the total plant investment in your system, how much of that has been funded by debt versus equity, your deposits and whatnot. If that ratio is too high, usually it's an indication of a high debt burden and inflexibility, and it usually relates to high rates. When I see utilities that are overburdened or over-leveraged, not only do they have a lack of flexibility in their rates, so they got to pay debt service, the future part of capital funding becomes much more difficult because you don't have that R&R fund balance. You can't float with it. So we estimate a net plant ratio around 38%. We think that's manageable. That's with both issues, by the way, through the forecast period. My recommendation, you never want to go above 50%. You'd like to stay 35 or a little lower. You got 38 with the debt. So I think that's really manageable. And again, it'll as we start the programs and whatnot, then you'll issue and go with that. I mentioned the R&R fund, pay-as-you-go capital. We're recommending, again, deposits for depreciation type equivalent to fund your capital needs. Which this is not debt finance, that would be the red. And you can see if we want to get to a 15% funding level to fund that CIP, or capital improvement plan of $27.6 million, you can see where our revenues or rates will be insufficient to fund all those items. The bar goes above the green line. Finally, to match the rates, rate revenues, that dark blue line, we have recommended rate adjustments, which I'll talk about in a second. It's very linear, as you can see. To have a constant rate phasing plan, we will actually generate a little bit of reserves in the front That is also good, because if you remember that funding plan, we had 46% debt, 54% or so pay-as-you-go or operations. Some of those reserves are actually providing some of that benefit as well for us. So that helps us not only levelize rates, but also provides additional capital funding in the near term. So what are the rate adjustments? The recommended rate adjustment is about 3.5% annually. It does include your price index inflation factor. So really it's about 1.5 to 1.7 times roughly an increase above your annual index, which we thought was a very reasonable level. And I'll show you this is the same equivalent to rates we're seeing all across the country as well as locally. The customer impact is about, on average for fiscals 22 through 25, about $1.72, $1.72 per month each year. These are additive. The current rates are at $44 for a customer using 8,000 gallons, and it'll go to about $53 over the 5-year period, a very levelized rate adjustment. These rates will be competitive with other neighboring utilities, as I'll show you in a minute. I mentioned the 3.5% per year. I wanted to this is something we did not create. This is a presentation made by the National Association of Clean Water Agencies, or NACWA. It deals with a composite index of about 174 utilities nationwide. Oh gosh, 104 million people. So it's a national perspective. And what I want to illustrate on this graph, there's two things. If you look at the dark blue, the blue side of the graph, you got the Duke blue and then the Carolina blue. The Duke blue, or the darker color, is increases in rates and adjustments for all these years based on this index of 174 utilities. And you can see it's very, very just a lot, let me say it that way. And some rates are really high and sometimes it's not. It's a lot of issues. But the point I want to make is if you look at the Carolina blue, that's more the consumer price index, and the dark color has always basically exceeded the consumer price index every year. And that was a comment I made earlier that our O&M costs were going about 3%, yet inflation is less than that. And that's also seen in this graph here. The other thing is if you look on the tail end of that graph, there was I guess they're kind of like gray color bars. That's the projections of rates from those 174 utilities that are seen over the next several years. And it's kind of hard to read, but it ranges from 3.4, I think, to 3.8 or 9%. That's kind of right in line where you are. We didn't pick the 3.5 to fit in there, but everyone's still seeing rate adjustments slightly higher than inflation, coming down a little bit. And the point I liked was that the adjustments we're recommending are kind of in the national average as well. And I'm seeing this statewide too. So I thought that was interesting. We mentioned earlier when we looked at rates, fiscal compliance or fiscal position, credit strength. And this graph is our projections of your operating cash balances in the system with the rate adjustments reflected as outlined and discussed earlier. As you can see, you're very strong, you stay very strong. The black line is a minimum 120 days of operations and maintenance expense. Many utilities target higher than that. We wanted to keep a low general minimum target. Although we are utilizing cash, we are depositing reserves, and cash is being used for capital needs and whatnot. The point is we stabilize, levelize cash, and we're above the target, and you're in a good fiscal position. This provides you a couple things. One, if there's an issue that pops up, a weather event, you've got some cash to handle that. A major line break or a maintenance issue, you've got that covered. Flip side, if you want to attract other capital, go back out and get some more debt, that's one of the debt and coverage, the two major things that the credit agent looks at. You're in a strong fiscal position, so you've got all this flexibility sitting there, yet you're not in an overcash position in my mind. In coverage, you look real strong. Yes, it drops to about a little over 2 times, That's an excellent coverage ratio. And the reason why, I need some help here. Yeah.
Well, I've got a question for you since you've got a little
Yes, sir.
technical difficulty. When you're calculating and making these calculations on the maintenance and stuff of our aging water main system.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I guess each city or village would be unique because of the different ages and stuff of the utilities. And in our case, you spoke about the water main it being extremely old.
Mm-hmm.
So in making these calculations, you were talking about spending $16 million over till 2030, in replacement of our aging water main system. Is there any advantage, or when you're doing your calculations and stuff, of the maintenance cost of that aging water system, because obviously you're going to have breaks and you're going to have valves and stuff like that are going to have to be replaced and locked up, et cetera, et cetera. So when you're making that calculation, have you ever taken into consideration of maybe replacing the water main sooner because of the additional cost as it continues to age and as the prices continue to go up with not only materials and labor and insurance, and et cetera, of maybe doing something a little more creative in trying to replace the water main system sooner rather than later because of the potential increased cost in the aging water main system?
Well, that's a real good question. And by way of an example, who waited way too long to replace, we just need to look down south at Fort Lauderdale, and of course they're having line breaks
all the time
every day,
right.
And wastewater geysers, which
then you got to replace roads and yards and sidewalks and
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think I'm not sure quite how to answer it. If the cost to maintain, and maybe you want to answer this, is greater than the cost to replace, you definitely want to maintain.
Well, obviously
that.
so, but I was wondering, when you made your calculations, when you showed the cost and stuff spread out over until 2030, you were talking about spending $16 million and stuff. You didn't show us the cost of what it's actually going to cost us to 2030, unless I missed it somewhere, of the maintenance of that water main until 2030. And I probably missed it.
No, you didn't. They're built in. I'm going to go back a little quick here. I'll stop right there.
But anyway, so when you're taking and making that calculation, each municipality is unique because of the age of different municipalities. And so some systems are obviously newer, some are older, et cetera, et cetera. So in making that calculation, was it unique for the village of Tequesta, or was it using a national average of the cost for maintaining a water main system throughout the country? Was that data unique for the city of Village? It was? Okay, all right.
The national system show you that you're not alone and that everyone's facing these issues.
Right, I understand that, right.
Yeah, but we looked at you individually, the capital plan, the needs of the village individually.
Yeah, just to build on that a little bit, as far as when's the appropriate time to replace a water main or really any asset. In a theoretical world, in a perfect world, there's that sweet spot. I think it's called the Nessie curve or whatever it is. There's that sweet spot where you're intersecting the maintenance cost versus the cost to replace.
Correct.
In a perfect world, you're proactively replacing all of your assets at that lowest cost of total ownership. That's what we're working to get to. We're not there right now. We're in a reactive mode with a lot of 60, 70-year-old water mains that are past that point, and posing a significant risk.
Well, that was the reason that stimulated my question, and I'm sorry if I interrupt you and stuff, because we all know that the system is extremely old, and in the cost and stuff, when you have to react to a break or a problem and stuff, not only does it inconvenience the citizens of Tequesta, and you got to shut their water off and and boil water type thing and things of that nature, which we have recently experienced. And I'm not, it's just what's happening when you got a system that's this old. This is going to happen. And so my real question is, have you looked at maybe trying to accelerate the replacement against the maintenance cost, rather than stretching it out until 2030 and stuff, because the costs are going to continue to go up to replace it 5, 10, 15 years, it's going to be a lot more expensive to replace at that time, and I'm sure he's done the calculations on the increase in stuff and cost of materials and labor, et cetera. But, you know, with the age of it, that was my question, basically.
Yeah, so the short answer is yes. We looked at a lot of scenarios and balancing. We could replace all of it in the next 5 years. I wouldn't sleep, but what you're balancing is when you're replacing it versus when it needs to be replaced versus the impact on the customers. And so by accelerating those in less years than what's planned, the rates that have been presented to you would not be sufficient in order to do that, even with the offsetting maintenance. And so we really were tried to be sensitive to when the assets needed to be replaced versus what's a reasonable and acceptable, and fair and competitive rates that can fund that.
Well, I was just curious, I mean, money's pretty cheap right now, and I don't think we're going to probably see these type of interest rates and stuff moving forward. I think it's going to continue to ease up, but I'm not an economist by any stretch of imagination. I'm just a dirt guy, but as they continue to go up, I mean, I thought it might be something to take a look at if we could maybe accelerate some of it, if not all of it, because of the maintenance cost. And I didn't know what that was. So thank you for answering my question.
I wanted to ask a follow-up question on that, though, because that was, an excellent question. Two questions. One is, when you look at the anticipated needs, for revenue, you had the inflation element built in, and you had the adjustment element built in. When you looked at the cost factor for replacement, I'm assuming that also reflects some type of an inflation adjustment? Okay.
Yeah.
The second question I wanted to ask is, you referenced the prior rate study that was done. And as everyone's acknowledged, the water distribution system, Mr. Bradford laughed, I don't know if he's still here, has been an issue for a long period of time. So when the rate study was done last time, which did not encompass the distribution system, there was an adjustment made over a 3-year period where rates were boosted 15%, although it was 5%, 5%, 5%, so compounded it was closer to 16.5%. And that was in addition to the normal 3.5% increase. And that rate increase was specifically designed to fund the water plant needs, not distribution. So when we look at where we are today, did that rate adjustment that took place several years ago accomplish that objective, and is the primary driver of what we're looking at now, I think I know the answer, but is it the water distribution system?
Yes, it is. So it did accomplish the purpose of funding the upgrades to the water plant that were completed in 2019, end of 2019. And I think Rob had a slide there that showed the CIP. The two major, looking at close to 85% of the driver there are 60% being water main replacements, and the other 25% being investments into the well field.
Yeah,
with a very small percentage being the remainder.
Yeah, I mean, the bulk of it is the water main replacement. I mean, out of the 598 is 16 million. I mean, that's 59.
Yeah, so I just wanted to make sure the prior rate increase had accomplished what it set out to do. And then, are we comfortable, when we get to 2030, where are we as far as the replacement process? Are we 100% complete at that point? I didn't have the impression we were.
No, we're probably in the 75-80% range.
So,
Rob had mentioned the part of the goals that's accomplished in here is over this 5-year period, increasing that deposit into the R&R, which is renewal and replacement, replacing the assets. And so one of the goals was, we're at a point now where we can't cash fund and reasonably replace these in the next 10, 20, or even 30 years. Right. But we don't want to be beholden to debt forever. Correct. And so part of that's where that increasing set aside puts us in a position to be able to then that third phase or tranche that would balance us out. That's where the goal is, to get us in a position where we can start funding those out of those R&R reserves.
How many, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Bruce.
How many people are actually, you had a calculation there earlier, it showed how many residents were on it, and then how many commercial and stuff. What was that number for the residents earlier? You had, it was.
50%.
Oh, it's about, just under 50, well, it was by revenue. Just under 50% of the revenue is by Tequesta residents.
Yeah, that's not the one I was looking for, though. You
Okay.
had a number of how many actual
equivalent
residential customers you have.
The equivalent accounts.
And also
Yeah,
the
that's
commercial
back a few
amount.
slides.
And another question, is there a difference in pricing for commercial or industrial use against the residential? Do residential people pay the same amount as a commercial usage or an industrial type usage as well?
Everybody, there aren't separate rates. It's based on the
Volume.
That's right. It's based
Yeah.
on the meter size.
Right.
For the base charge, and then the volume that's used. It's not. There's not a different rate for a commercial user versus a residential user.
But
Yeah, and most of our customers are residential. The only slight tweak is from the meter size would be the multifamily, which are served by a large meter, and then that's based on the number of ERCs or equivalent residential.
So what's the total number that you both residential and commercial?
5,000 accounts, 8,000 ERCs.
It's on here somewhere. I saw it. Well, I'll tell you where I'm going at with this. I mean, even if you had, say, 5,000, people on the service at $5, that's 25,000 times 12. That's $300,000 a year in additional revenue. If we put nobody wants to hear this, but if you added a replacement cost to accelerate the water main, replacement stuff at $5 per customer, which you could maybe even hit the commercial people up a little bit more for the usage and stuff of it, that would generate $300,000 a year, with just a $5 increase above and beyond your normal annual increases. And another thing, when I was looking at the water main that ran all the way out to Jupiter Island where Sea Glass is being built, you look at the amount of water main that we've got just to service Jupiter Inlet out there, and that stretch going down the ocean front there where Sea Glass is located. I wonder what percentage of water main that is to take it over the bridge and running east and west. I mean, those guys are getting, we've got a lot of line out there to maintain and service. It's a far cry away from where the water, the plants and stuff at. That's a long way. There's another line that's blue, and I think it was before this one.
It is. It's a couple slides earlier.
I'm trying to get there with it. I think you're talking about.
Slide 2.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm sorry.
That's it.
There you go.
I mean, you look at it, it's a long way. I mean, it's a lot of water line to service that little bit that's out there.
Now, they do pay a surcharge.
They do?
They pay 25% above the.
unincorporated.
If it's unincorporated, but if Sea Glass will be part of the village, so. But now, Inlet County, they're a separate entity, so they do pay a surcharge on Inlet County.
Okay, well, that's encouraging.
And, just to correct that, the Jupiter Inlet County does not pay a surcharge.
Oh, did we not? Is that part of our agreement?
It was part of an agreement with the colony as part of.
I'd forgotten that, okay.
Some replacements a number of years ago.
So all the unincorporated areas are paying the surcharge, and Martin County.
That's correct.
One other question that had come up, with the asbestos, which we know is safe within the pipes, but one of the questions that had come up over the years, and Jeremy and the senior staff, you guys have done a great job of pursuing grants, which I think we're all elated about. But the question was did we believe there would be any opportunities for grants or any type of either state or federal funding assistance to replace water mains? Now, obviously, we have the infrastructure bill, quote unquote, that's being pushed through Congress. I would argue water mains, water plants are truly infrastructure, but do we foresee or any possibilities there, or is just the wise thing to do is plan it on our own, and if something happens, then that's a blessing?
That's what we assume, yes.
Yeah, so that's, as far as what's available, unless you're under a consent order, essentially emergency, the opportunities for free dollars are really limited. Or kind of limited to essentially budget appropriations from the state level. If we're poised and ready, if there are federal dollars that become available. One of the key things that, at least in the last one, a little over a decade ago, was having shovel-ready projects.
Correct.
We're poising ourselves to be ready to have shovel-ready projects so that we can take advantage of that if that does come down the road. But currently, what's available, it's really mostly kind of an earmark from a state level.
What's the average age of the water main now?
The average age? I don't have that, but I can get that for you.
You said old?
Yeah, it's old.
Yeah.
It's plus six.
I'd say very old.
Old's not a number though, and I can.
The can's no longer available to kick. I have a question on slide 2, or I'm sorry, slide 4. You're on 2. You use a nice revenue chart, a pie graph, and it does explain where all the revenues come from. If you go to number 5, here are the expenses. This is the area where we can kind of control some aspects, but we're not even talking about expenses here. We're just talking about revenue. Can you help identify kind of the personal power, chemicals, and supplies? What percentage of the expenses those make up? Outside and capital debt services. I'm curious if you got that. If not, right later.
I can get you those numbers.
You're talking about like the chlorine and stuff like that?
I'm just talking about the overall expenses.
Chemicals, yeah.
Oh, the growth?
Just the expenses currently?
Operating expenses or just?
For operating?
So the whole,
capital and
all
debt.
the operating.
Yeah, I mean, we got the
Okay.
pie chart in front on revenue.
So I was looking at, they had the summary projected operating expenses.
Yep.
And it's easy to look at the big numbers, right? You kind of focus on those. And power
Sure.
was one of the ones I was looking at, and I was wanting to be, are you looking at any kind of efficiencies to improve our energy consumption, to help with that number at all in the future?
So I do know that our power bill is a little over $400,000 a year. We do have a project that's going on right now, that was approved a couple months ago, that is specifically looking at efficiencies from not just energy efficiencies, but also chemical or resource efficiencies. So that is something it's ongoing right now. One of the specificities or idiosyncrasies about our plant is we do have a membrane process, and membrane processes are inherently energy intensive. So there are some limitations on what we can do with the process that we have. It's from a water quality perspective is extremely robust, and provides a really high level of removal. But what your trade-off is it's an energy intensive treatment process, and so that does limit some of what's available for us to do. But for any treatment, water or wastewater treatment process, pumps and blowers are the heart of the process and where your energy costs are. And so we don't have blowers, but as far as the pumps, both the membrane feed pumps and the high service pumps that deliver out to the system are specifically being looked at as part of this project that's ongoing now at the water plant.
I say this a bit jokingly, but we could always buy the 9 acres over there on County Line Road and put us in a solar field over there and start generating some of our own power and selling it back to FP&L.
The percentage you mentioned adding to the R&R fund, is your plan still to keep it is to move it to 15%?
Move over time.
Over time, starting at, what, 13? Did I see that right?
Starting, I think we were around 8 to 9% starting off and getting to 15 by the 10th year.
By the 10th year.
And the reason why I thought that may be good, because you are doing debt financing that fund for the water mains as you've been talking about. And I didn't want to raise the rates, recommend to raise rates too much up front, put my customer hat on a bit. And if grants do come, if the infrastructure dollars do come, which I think there's a lot of money floating around right now, I didn't want to raise it so high, then say, either drop it back down or whatnot, and that gave you more flexibility. Although we did a 10-year forecast, we're doing a 5-year rate resolution to allow you to come back, to allow you to make changes, or say, gosh, after 5 years, we'll do, the indexing's gonna work. You should keep that going no matter what. Keep those operating margins as much as you can going forward. So that was the kind of the plan, recognizing that we have aging infrastructure and the cost to replace, as you know, is much more expensive. Cost of initial install.
And then do you know if we have an ordinance that specifies how many days we need to maintain in the cash balance of expenses?
I don't.
Because I know we have it for the general fund, do we have it for the?
It's not, sorry. It's not something that's enacted by ordinance. It's just it's something that's been incorporated as good practice, in industry standard practice in the resolution, or in the analysis, but it's not enacted by ordinance.
And we did look at criteria and recommendations, not only by GFOA, but also Fitch rating agencies, things of that nature. They're doing a outside credit looking in. Where do you want to be as a AA rated utility or high single A? I always try to strive for a AA type. It's a good reflection on management. It's usually a good reflection on operations. It's usually a good reflection on rates if you're at that type of credit. Strong liquidity, good coverage, flexibility in terms of your CIP, and that's what we were trying to get to.
In your professional opinion, you think 120 days is enough to maintain that AA?
No, I do not. I think 150, where we are, would be closer to a AA. That's where we actually are. I like the minimum. I think I put lower because if you go there for an event that we're not aware of, that's your minimum, and then bring you back up to where you think you should be fiscally. And I'd rather be. I haven't quite got there yet. I would 150. I think is a much stronger position, and you're there. And so I'm trying to get there. This one right here. So you can see you're there. 150 would probably be around the $2.5 million range, and that's where you're at.
So I agree with Mr. Prince about that. You know, interest rates are low. I think interest rates are naturally going to go up. I think inflation is going to continue to go on materials.
Yeah.
The sooner that we can start these projects with everything taken into consideration, I think it's imperative that we do that. I also think we should move forward and create an ordinance to maintain 150 days. And I'd like to do that if possible, because I think that's very wise to do, to put that on the books.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to even contemplate, doing it, but I still think the idea, I mean, $5 a month on every customer generates, $300,000 a year. It's not that much, but some people, $5 is a lot of money. Every month is $60 a year, to the customer stuff. But I don't know how much that would allow us to accelerate some of that, because it just concerns me that in 2030 we still haven't replaced all of the old, as you described it, water main system. And I can see, one big blowout could cost us a lot of extra money that we don't have any, you've got a little reserve, obviously, is what we were just talking about, but, it can be quite expensive when you start having to replace roadways and sidewalks and yards, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it can be very damaging when you have a big water main blowout.
And then that $5 becomes cheap.
Very cheap, yeah. And, and then the service and stuff being down, et cetera. I mean, the situation just compounds on you. I think it's something that we maybe ought to consider talking about a little bit further, about maybe trying to figure out a way to accelerate the replacement of that aging water main that we've got.
And completely agree. The other question I have is, at the end of these 10 years, will we have an issue with the water production side of things? It seems like we're flip-flopping back and forth over the last 20 years. Is this going to sacrifice that?
Yeah, so as Rob mentioned, capital investment is lumpy. One of the reasons why it was important to me that we're looking from a long-term perspective, not just even just a 5-year window, was getting our arms as best as we can around all of the needs, capital as well, over that window. And so as we move forward, we're going to keep looking forward into that next window. But in this initial 10-year outlook, we're looking at with input from our water plant team, with input from our distribution team, with input from our consultants, we're looking at what are those needs in in the system, at the plant, in the well field, and as well as in the distribution system. And certainly the most pressing of those right now are one out in the distribution system, two in the well field, and there has been, as the mayor mentioned, there has been investment into the water plant. That's been positive. That there's not that we can stop, but it's not the same level of investment that's needed in those other two areas.
Well, and you've got capital assets with different life expectancy, so you have to plan accordingly. I guess the only thing I would say, Kyle, as far as doing this as an ordinance, we have a policy in terms of the reserves we want to hold. I would not be in favor of hamstringing the council and our operating elements by saying that this is an ordinance, because that doesn't allow us flexibility if something were to occur in the future and we had to, exceed or fall short of that for some period of time if there was an emergency or something else.
Let me ask you a question. Do we currently have an ordinance on the general fund?
No.
Is it not an ordinance, or is it?
It's a policy.
Okay, then I agree with you then. You have the policy. I think we should have a policy that states that then. Yep.
So it sounds like
I would say that policy would be very similar to what we have with the general fund, where if we fall below that, we would advise you guys that we need to make some changes.
Yep, as long as there's a policy that brings it to people's attention.
But I think the tenor of the discussion sounds like we would be in favor of looking at the possibilities if we're trying to accelerate this process a bit. Consistent with some of the issues and concerns, Matt, you talked about the issues for customers and how that's going to affect them and the workload you're undertaking, and I understand all that, but I think there's a desire here to maybe take advantage of the current rate environment, understanding the future is uncertain, and maybe move a bit more quickly. And as you said, shovel ready too, because we use that to our advantage with the bridge. We were able to get federal funding when we rebuilt the bridge years ago. So if funding were to come down, obviously being ready to act and take advantage of that would be a good thing.
Yeah, I would agree with you. And as you think about cash policy, I would encourage you to recognize reserves versus capital. In this capital-intensive business, water and sewer, and I know you're only water, is probably the most capital-intensive of all the utilities. If you think about it, it's easy to run an electric line. You have to run a pipe for me to deliver water to your doorstep. Yeah. And that's a lot more expensive.
Well, and let's face it, water is a critical resource. I mean,
you can't live without it.
We can't live without it, and having this asset as part of our village is a tremendous benefit to the residents in the community. I guess we interrupted you enough, so.
No.
That's what it says. Were you even talking?
This is a real eye-opener here. It's got a lot of great information and stuff in it.
And we are talking about some rate structure change moving forward. I'm going to turn it back over to Matt here in a second. But recognizing where you are, there's a couple things we want to do. Is increase fixed cost recovery. That provides revenue. They call it revenue stability. Fixed cost recovery, you're going to get those revenues every year, whether I use zero, very expensive customers, I'm not using any water, I've got those pipes there to serve you, called readiness to serve, or I'm using a lot of water. I think you were talking about the commercial side, they had a lot of water use. So we're looking at not only fixed cost recovery, putting the tiers more in line with what other communities are charging, look at essential use versus discretionary use, type of relationships with water management districts like that, and also follow the clean energy standards. With that, I think you wanted to talk about the structure.
So the rate changes that have been proposed before you, what they translate to is on the base charge, which is the fixed monthly charge, an increase of around 9%. Around 9% per month. On the volumetric side, or the variable side based on the amount that's used, it's actually a decrease of 11 to 12%. You can see from on the first tier from 312 to 275. The third major, or the third significant, bless you. The third significant change is related to the tiers, and we tied those tiers, how many gallons are included in each tier. We tied those tiers to the first one to essential or indoor use, and the second two tiers capped the tiers, the 15,000 and the 30,000 gallons, were specifically specifically identified or targeted at irrigation levels for the average size lots in the village, using, going off of the South Florida Management District guidelines for irrigation per week. And so those were specifically targeted at those levels.
And you're saying that's between the 15 and 30,000 gallon?
Correct. So the typical lot for in Tequesta is the normal quarter acre size lot, and so that would get you up to in the 15,000 gallon range.
Okay.
And then we do have larger lots, half acre and larger, and then you start getting into that next tier of irrigation usage, which gets you up to 30,000 gallons, and then anything above that pushes you into tier 4. And again, as was mentioned, for the 5-year window, that moving forward after these rates would go into effect on October 1st of this year, so the first day of FY22, and then the subsequent years after that would increase or escalate at 3.5% per year from there. What these translated to, as Rob mentioned, the average residential customer uses 8,000 gallons. What's presented to you now on October 1st, that would translate into about a $1.80 increase for that average customer per month.
You know, when I'm talking about you know, it's a cup of coffee at Starbucks.
He's talking about a cup of coffee at the gas station.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So as we started off with, an important goal for us was to make sure that we are, ensure that we're competitive within the local area. And so to do that, we took a look at our current and proposed rates at a couple different water usage levels and compared those to our neighboring utilities. The first of which at 6,000 gallons. And as you can see, we're in the middle of the pack both now and with the proposed rates at that 6,000 gallon level. As your water rates increase, we actually start shifting a little further back in the pack and become a little bit more competitive. But either way, with all of those, we're still under the median of the utilities in our general area. That's at the 15,000 gallon level and at the 30,000 gallon level.
Do you have I know you said the average was 8,000. But do you have a percentage of how many fall in that 15,000 gallon range?
I don't have that at my fingertips, but I can get that for you.
Okay.
Another thing that is important perspective to keep is.
Can you
sure
back up again? I would like to ask you a question. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to mention on this, the proposed Tequesta rates are 2021 rates. A lot of these utilities are going to be raising rates in 2022 as well, as was shown here. They're not on here. So all the blue you see are the rates as of today. If you look at the village that Tequesta proposed at 106.25, that's
without their
6 months
increases.
from now.
Yeah, okay.
So I just want to mention an example, Martin County will be raising their rates with indexing about 2%. Riviera Beach, I know, needs a large increase based on the condition of their system. West Palm Beach is looking at 2 to 4% rate adjustments. Lake Park Shores has got a study now, I think 4 to 5% adjustments. So I know that's going on. So although our rates may go up, our comparability will remain as strong as it is today. I just want to mention that.
Well, you know, you look at those that are north of us there. You got Stewart, Palm Beach County, St. Lucie, Lake Charles, Shores, and St. Lucie County. A lot of those are north of us that are higher than we are. Percentage-wise, it's above half of them that are north of us. Is there any reason why that their rates up there in St. Lucie and Stewart are higher than the others?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm trying to think here.
Yeah, I know Rob serves a few of those north and south. Each utility is, as you mentioned, each utility is unique. They're each in different stages of their life. We're in Tequesta, we're a mature utility. We're largely built out, and depending on the life cycle, the life stage of the assets of each utility and how they have invested into it in the past, kind of puts them where they're at. But I don't know that I have a, why
I'm
is
just curious.
more of, the northern entities more on the right side and some more
Well,
on
Martin
the...
County's just north of us, it's third, coming in on the lowest time, but you still have quite a few of them that are north of us.
Yeah, I can tell you, Port St. Lucie is one of those communities that was a platted community, buy your lot, and come paradise type of general development, old general development, you remember that. So they have a kind of strange service territory. St. Lucie County is a small utility with a lot of plants, several plants that serve neighborhood areas. They're looking at consolidating plants right now. They're also looking at talking to Fort Pierce about moving the wastewater plant, which I know you're not wastewater, off that barrier island out there, bring it over. All that is being discussed. You can see changes there. Those are two I know. Stewart is landlocked around Martin County.
Right.
And they've got excess wastewater. That's wastewater again, but I know they get excess capacity sitting there. That could be a reason. Your most expensive capacity is your unused capacity. So that could be part of that answer there.
Stewart has a number of plant issues, or plant investments that they're having to make to deal with regulatory issues.
Right. I know Riviera mentioned earlier is undervalued. I can tell you that. Their rate should be higher. And so, but that kind of gives me a feel. Everyone is different.
Yeah.
In terms of how you fund, how proactive you are, age of your assets, as you mentioned, densities, more people per mile of pipe,
right.
So lower cost, water use. Jupiter, has a very high average water use per customer.
That's an interesting statistic, though, how many customers were per mile of pipe. We've got 75 miles and throw their average of 6,000.
Think about your pipe one, what you just talked about earlier.
Right. Interesting.
We're almost to the finish line. Just we'll give you a little hope.
A few more to go after this one.
So another, I think, important perspective is comparing the cost of water to other basic services that households incur on a monthly basis. And when you take a look at the cost of water on a monthly basis, the value it provides versus others, it's not insignificant by any means, but it's one of the best deals going around as far as the value that it brings and versus the cost that you're paying. I think that Rob's got a little wrap up on the rates, and then.
Thank you. I believe Matt had mentioned this earlier, some of the guiding principles as we were doing all this. Rates should fully recover the cost to provide service, both operation maintenance and long-term capital planning, which may include debt. We want to try to make sure we maintain the system as a very sustainable utility. The revenues of this from rates is the source of funds for everything we're doing, for the value you're providing for water use. Now, that's really important. And so as we're looking at this, trying to maintain that strong credit, we mentioned AA, those cash reserves, is very important from a rate sustainability standpoint. The more you look at that and stay in that path, the better rate sustainability you have. You're not going to have these 15% rate adjustments. That's what we don't want. We want, planned steady growth, steady rate adjustments as we go. And it does promote pay-as-you-go financing, which is incredible. But finally, you maintain competitive positions we want to be. The program does allow you to fund the capital plan as identified. Again, if we want to accelerate, that's something we can look at. We can issue more debt if we want to, but that's something that's there, but it does fund the plan that we identified. I did mention the strong fiscal position. I think we're there. We maintain that. And we would recommend, based on everything today, that approving the rate resolution to produce those rate revenues as identified is important. We recommend you maintain that price index adjustment in your rates, but if you adopt a multi-year rate phasing plan as identified at 3.5% roughly, I would not index on top of that. That includes the index. So if you say, I want to adopt 1 year, implement the indexing thereafter, keep that margin, at least something to keep the margins there. But we would definitely recommend that. And always do what you're doing tonight, continue to monitor this, either through the budgetary process, through annual review, not annual review, you don't want it to be every year, 3 to 5 years, but that's very important. Also, Moody's and Fitch look at that as a strong management criteria of constant planning. They score municipals high for that fact they're continuing evaluating. So we would recommend that. We don't want any gotchas or uh-ohs as we move forward here. And I think with that, that's.
Yeah, that's it. It's just, we started with we started with goals in mind to present to you, maintaining a sustainable financial plan to fund all the costs for running the utility, keeping a long-term 10-year outlook, having fair, predictable, competitive rates, efficient use of the finite resource that we're privileged to use, and legal defensible rates. And so with that, appreciate the time and your patience, and know it's an important and an important topic. And so, any other questions?
Other questions, comments?
I just have more of a statement. I think, I think this is a fabulous report. Thank you. It was very informative. The more I read, the more my questions got answered. So thank you for the great presentation. I do just want to be sensitive with, I agree with everything said. If we could accelerate any other placement, that would be amazing. So maybe we could brainstorm on that. But when it comes to raising the rates and adding an extra $5, that's not a lot to some people, but it is a lot to other people. And I believe FPL is raising their rates soon. We hear about insurance rates raising. So I just want to be sensitive to that and keep that in the back of our minds if we look for any other avenues.
And I agree with you. I mean, I even made mention that I thought that the $5 for some people is a lot of money. And that you start adding that on to all your different utilities and stuff, and it adds up to $20, $25 and stuff. So it does add up, and it does make a difference. But if you really looked in it really deep, it might be less expensive in the long run, depending on how long you live here. It would be a lot less, maybe less expensive to pay now rather than later. Pay less now or pay more later.
Right.
I mean, it scares me to think that the system is as old as it is, and we've got that much to replace. And if you timed it right with petroleum prices down and pipe prices go down, you could pre-buy your pipe and just then supply the materials, and then just contract the labor and the installation and stuff out, which is a potential. Because when I do underground work, which that's what I do for a living. So we charge for our materials, obviously, and a markup, et cetera, like that on it. So if you bought them, you could buy it as cheaper than what I can probably. So you could probably cut your costs down some even, by buying the materials and just contracting out the labor costs.
Lori, do you have anything you want to add?
I think we covered all of it, to be honest. That's why I kind of wanted him to finish too, because like Mrs. Young said, sometimes the more we get into it, a lot of our questions get answered as we go along.
Well, I'll just say that I know that I'm glad that we're finally here and have this this study and this presentation. I know when I was running 2 years ago, I came across this and realized that this was a big concern. So I'm glad we're talking about it, and like the fact that we're trying to move forward with that. I would love to see kind of an annual report, maybe in May of each year, obviously not this year, of where we are on this type of a plan. That way we just get that update on an annual basis and compare everything. So I'd like to see that.
I want to, again, echo what others have said. It's an excellent presentation. I guess I only have one question, really. Given what we're trying to achieve, and given the conversation we've had around, the differential in costs and the value of water, I mean, the reality is most people spend more on their cable bill than they're spending on their water bill. So when I look at this, for example, the 6,000 gallon mark, we're actually reducing rates. At 8,000, it's a minimal differential. You talked about lowering the rate, not the fixed component, but the variable component, as I recall. Why not just leave it where it is and go forward from there? I don't think the difference in...
Perimeter's changed.
Pardon?
The perimeters changed from 0 to 12,000.
No,
We're saying
no,
0 to 6.
No, I realize it did change, but even with that, why not leave those rate, instead of reducing those rate structures? I understand the difference in perimeter change, but upgrade them to those perimeters, and that will generate some additional revenue. I don't think it'll be $5 a month per household unless you're at the very high end, but it might give you some additional revenue that you could utilize. Maybe it's not significant enough to, but it's just a thought.
Yeah, it's, I mean, it's on the table. Certainly increasing that volumetric rate from what was proposed. There is an overall increase by changing where the tiers or where the blocks
Right.
end. And it's honestly, it comes down to the appetite of what's affordable and reasonable for the community. And so that one's a little bit more of a difficult question to answer.
Okay.
Do these proposed structure rates, are there other municipalities that are using these similarities? I know when we looked at, when we're having our issues with our meter, our measuring, it was all over the place, trying to compare an apple to an apple. Does this kind of get it closer to some other municipalities?
It gets us, it nudges us closer. I'll say a majority of municipalities, at least in the area, and Rob probably has a little bit bigger perspective throughout the state and the southeast, but we have a little bit more complex with the tiers varying by the meter size. So if you have a 1 inch, then your tier 1 goes to 12.
Yep.
Versus I'd say probably more of the norm is that there's one tier. So tier 1, whether you have a 3-inch meter or a 3/4 inch meter, tier 1 is going to be 0 to X. Tier 2 is going to be 0. What that does though is it puts shifts more of the impact onto larger users. And so that was actually something specifically that I looked at, and on the higher end, it was a very significant impact on the larger users by condensing it down to 1. And so that shock, that initial shock would be pretty substantial for a small percentage of our customers. That's, it's whatever rate structure you enact, there's probably not the best term, but there's winners and losers, right? It's depending on how that revenue comes in and balances out, it shifts more of it towards the larger users.
And you already
regardless of meter size.
You've already had to deal with shock effects in the past. So I guess the issue is, do we want to move forward with this resolution as it stands? We can always come back and further address the issue of trying to accelerate and maybe make any further rate adjustments in the future. But so do we have a motion to move this resolution forward as it currently stands?
I would make a suggestion that we do move forward with it, and that over the next year, we come up with maybe a possibility of accelerating it, if possible. It gives us that year time to plan for that.
Yeah, I'd like to revisit it.
I'd second that,
Yeah.
what Mr. Stone just said.
I definitely would like to look at it.
We clearly have that option to be able to do that, but this will at least start this process
Just go.
forward, and then we can come back and revisit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So,
If I might just repeat it back so I'm understanding the direction clearly. So I think what I'm hearing is moving forward with what's here, but you'd like to see a plan on what that might look like in order to accelerate those replacements in the not too distant future.
And so that at the end of this decade, we are at 100%.
Yeah.
Understood.
Would be the way I would recommend it.
Yeah, I mean, I would, to look at it, to try to accelerate. I mean, because guys, I mean, it could turn out to be a lot more than what you're showing on there, in my opinion, with the system as old as it is. I mean, we could have a lot more maintenance cost and additional cost for, blowouts, et cetera, and stuff like that.
okay. So do we have a motion to move this forward?
Yeah, that would be my motion, that a year from now, we look at trying to get it to 100% by the end of this decade.
I'll second.
Okay. Do we need to rework anything here, Keith? Is that motion sufficient?
Well,
because the
The
motion allows
resolution
rate
proposes
structures.
the actual revision to your rate schedule. So,
Right.
I mean, I think you need a motion that addresses the adoption of the revised rate schedule, and then you can tag on the additional review in a year if you know, however you want to do that. But
So I'll-
Separate issue.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to approve that rate schedule, and then I'll say, hey, Mr. Jeremy, can you go ahead and follow through with the other aspect?
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. And do we have, and you second?
Yes,
Uh,
second.
Everyone, vote? Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Matt, hopefully we can go through these next a little quicker. Sorry to.
This was, I think, a 50 pitch inning.
But it was a very
So I'm
important
hoping
issue.
for like a 9 pitch inning on the next few.
You're at bat, man.
What's that?
You're at bat, you're not pitching.
Okay, item 14, this is increasing the stormwater utility fund budget.
All right, item 14 and 15 are tied together. If you remember last summer, we experienced, thank you, we experienced an incredible amount of rain in a very short time, which was, it was a blessing, but it was a challenge, but it was also a blessing. It exposed a lot of weaknesses within the stormwater system, and there were the emergency repairs that were done. Coming out of that, our team, Mr. Tinoco's team here, they combed through our stormwater system and in detail and identified other pipes, a significant amount of pipes that were in similar condition. And so what's being brought before you now is one amendment, a budget appropriation to fund number 15, which is the lining of 44 segments of stormwater pipe. We went out, we approached multiple vendors, presented the quantities to them, got prices back, and the lowest of which we're bringing to you. It happens to be the same contractor that did the emergency work last year.
So you're recommending that the lining will make the water flow move faster?
The lining will keep water from entering in the pipes where it's not supposed to.
Okay.
Causing road collapses and sidewalk collapses, allowing it to percolate in the ground instead of into holes in the pipe, or go into the catch basins where it's supposed to.
Got it.
So you have got a lot of infiltration into it?
There is, and what that does is it brings sand with it
Right,
into the pipe, plugging up the pipe, and then also leaving depressions that cause problems.
Exactly.
Any other comments? Okay, do I have a motion to approve resolution 2221?
So moved.
Second?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, it passes unanimously. All right, Matt, move on to item, well, that's 14. Motion on item 15, which is the piggyback. Do I have a motion to approve resolution, item number 15?
Motion?
Do I have a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that passes. Moving on to number 16.
Item 16 is a budgeted item that was budgeted this current fiscal year. It's an item that's very important to our water plant team. We have 2 degasifier and scrubber systems at the water plant. They remove dissolved gases from the treated water. One was installed in 1999, the other in 2011. Neither system has had substantial maintenance done to it of any nature since they were installed. And so it's time. To ensure the lowest price, we put out an RFQ. We received 2 requests for quotes. We received 2 quotes back, the lowest of which coming from membrane treatment services in the amount of $67, $317, and 51 cents. Our water plant team has worked with membrane treatment services before. They're comfortable with their work, and it's recommended that we move forward with the lowest quote that we received. The budgeted amount, the amount that was included in the budget for this particular work was $102,000.
Cool. Yes. So we're actually saving some money.
We'll take it where we can get it.
Absolutely. Okay. Any discussion on this item?
I have none.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve item 16?
I'll motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. All right, Matt, we're coming to the end.
All right, last of which, we've talked a lot about water main replacements. This is one of those projects. It's was the second highest priority on of the list of water mains to be replaced in the facilities plan. It's phase 2 of replacing the asbestos cement main out on Beach Road. It's a portion in the northern end of Beach Road, and on the southern end going around the corner and the subaqueous crossing the intercoastal. This is work authorization to complete the design permitting, and then the follow-up construction services with Kinley Horn, who had completed phase 1 of it. This is one that is one of those projects that plan to have to get designed on paper and have that. This is one of those shovel-ready projects that we want to have ready to go.
The piping across the intercoastal, wasn't that the area where we were having some problems in the past with water leakage? Is that where we had an issue there?
There's 2 crossings across the intercoastal. A northern one that's around Jupiter Point Marina. That's a directional drill that goes not just under the water, but actually under the bottom of the intercoastal as well. The southern one is one of the original to the Tequesta system. I'm told it actually it's not a directional drill; it actually lays on the bottom, and it does have integrity issues. That's why this was priority number 2 on the list of water main replacement projects, and those were ranked based on age of the pipe material, and then risk to the system should it fail, which were the criteria that were used.
Any thoughts? Any comments?
What kind of pipe is that they're going to be using? Is that HDPE?
Directional drilling is by and large HDPE, unless there's some significant lengths or other extenuating factors where sometimes ductile or there's even a fusible PVC, but the most cost effective is HDPE in most cases.
Cross underneath there. Yeah.
What's the diameter on that?
It is 10, and I believe it's being replaced with a 12. 10-inch and being replaced with a 12-inch is the plan.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve this work authorization?
So motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Number 18, Brad, you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Turned out to be probably a little later evening than you thought.
As enthralling as the Matt show was, I couldn't peel myself away.
Well, now it's turning into the Brad show.
Yeah, at least for a little bit. This is a typical maintenance item. We are upgrading all of our Windows servers to the most current version, and then purchasing software assurance on those licenses, which enables us to upgrade to the next version of Windows that will be coming out. And this is the server operating system, not Windows 10, like you all are probably familiar with. So this allows us to install an unlimited number of Windows servers, which is, and this is actually significantly more cost effective than purchasing a la carte licenses. A la carte licenses for us would run close to $100,000, so this is a much better deal.
Okay.
Any questions?
Council comments, questions?
Just curious how many servers we have.
We have we actually have exactly 35 Windows servers. That doesn't include the Linux-based servers or appliances. Altogether, we have close to 50.
Man.
I have no further questions.
Do we have a motion to approve the purchase of the Windows Server 2019 software assurance programs?
All motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? Passes unanimously. Mr. Chambers. Item 19, roadway improvements.
Lobbying with the village clerk to get
better placement.
I do have a presentation, but it's going to be relatively short. Funding was first available for road improvements back in 2017, 2018, and 2019. It's important that I mention that we we continue with road improvements through a phased approach. And that's what I'm going to talk a little bit about here, where we've been and where we're going.
Down is up.
There we go. So back in 2010 and 2013, the Village of Tequesta roads were assessed by Arcadis Engineering, and then in 2014, Dunkelberger Engineering and Testing was brought in and completed core samples throughout the village. Field inspections gave us a profile of our roads and that the pavement was generally in good to fair condition. Pavement cracking, surface weathering was observed. Drainage issues and edge of road cracking were also noted during the inspections. Asphalt thickness ranged between 2 1/4 inches and 6 1/4, and the asphalt generally consisted of 1 to 3 layers of asphalt. The underlying base course material was shell rock and found between ranges of 6 to 21 inches. Interestingly, groundwater was measured at a depth of as little as 4 feet to 6 feet, which impacts our roads and our underground utilities. Major factors causing pavement distress throughout the village. The age of the asphalt binder. When the asphalt binder is new, it's very flexible, and as it ages, it becomes stiff and brittle, and eventually causes surface cracking. Poor drainage and standing surface water. Standing water seeps through the asphalt cracks and obviously weakens the base course. This results in further asphalt cracking. All these pictures you're seeing in here are our village roads as well. This year is one of the areas that we're going to be milling and paving over on Venus, Mars, and Saturn. We have a lot of edge of road cracking. We have an unstable base, poorly compacted base. There are no curbs, and what you find is cars will continue to drive on the edge of the road. We'll go in there, we'll mill and pave, we'll repair the road, and then the cars drive further up into the grass. So a recommendation with the road repairs and the road improvements to add a flush header curb in there, which you'll see as we move forward. That'll help with the drainage, and that'll help improve and secure the edge of road. Another major factor, Matt's touched on that several times tonight, is underground utilities. Stormwater, sanitary sewer, and water distribution pipe leaks and breaks. Compromises the base rock and undermines the asphalt road. You'll see a lot of this in the Pines, Tequesta Pines, and you'll see a lot of this in the country club community. In the Pines, I know Matt's working on repairing a lot of the underground utilities, and Loxahatchee is also working on repairing their sanitary sewer lines. Pipelining is cost effective, however, it often doesn't address the damage to the compaction and density of the base rock, and therefore you have the depressions in the road. In some of these areas, we'll do some core sampling. An open cut repair will be required, or a full depth reclamation where we actually take the road, the asphalt, the base rock, and the soil and blend it together to create a solid base. Oak trees. We love oak trees, we love palm trees. Our streets are lined with trees, and most of those trees were planted without root barriers, and the roots want to come up to the surface seeking water. They push up our sidewalk, they push up the swales, and they push up the road. In the future, any trees that are being planted will be planted with root barriers, and in consideration to the distance to the road and the sidewalks.
Didn't we do root barriers along the sidewalks that we recently just did in the Country Club? Didn't we do root barriers, like a root like inhibitor of some sort?
Not on mature trees. It's very difficult to put the root barrier in when you have mature trees.
No, I understand
If
that.
you're planting new trees, that's the time to put in the root barrier.
Didn't we do something in the contract on the sidewalk to prevent roots from coming through the sidewalk?
We did not, other than cut back the roots.
Cut back the roots, okay.
Yeah. And then lastly, road has surpassed its expected design life. Expected service life of an asphalt road ranges from 15 to 18 years on a heavily traveled road, and 20 or more on a less traveled road, or your side streets. But there are a lot of factors that come into play, like your underground utilities. Temporary repair patches and techniques. We go around town on a monthly basis, and we install cold patch. It's good for small potholes. We use hand tampering tools and rollers. It's cost effective, however, it is just temporary. We also use hot patch. This is over on Mars on the edge of the road. The road was so bad we had cut the road, put in some hot patch. This is a quick repair and cost-effective, and quicker than adding curb and gutter. However, again, this is a temporary repair, and again, it leads the vehicles to drive further and further into the right-of-way. Pavement crack filling and sealing. We fill small cracks with asphalt to prevent additional cracking, and our preferred method is a hot pour patch. And long-term solutions. So this is actually over on Village Boulevard, where we did some road repairs and we installed a flush concrete header curb. This will allow for drainage to be distributed evenly into the swale, especially when we have a lot of areas that don't have catch basins. So we don't want to push the water, we don't want to move it down the road, we don't want to impact another part of that road or a resident or commercial building. You just want it to evenly flow into the swales. That's why we would use a flush header curb. It also provides stability to the edge of the road. A common solution, which you've seen around here, we started road repairs and improvements in 2017, 18, and 19, milling out at 1 to 2 inch depth and resurface with new asphalt. This is a standard process when there is a stable base under the asphalt. And average two-lane cost, to mill and pave a two-lane road is $24 to $28 a linear foot per mile. Another long-term solution, and this is something that may have to come in the future, is a full-depth reclamation, when the pavement and base rock is beyond repair and the base needs to be stabilized. You can't continue to put asphalt, new asphalt on top of an unstable base. You're going to see more depressions in the road.
That'd be a good time to coincide it with a water main replacement.
Exactly. And what we're going to do, obviously, Matt's got a list of lining projects, Loxahatchee has a list of lining projects.
Mm-hmm.
We will stay out of those areas until all of those lining projects are done.
Correct.
There are probably some underground piping that may not be able to be lined, and they're going to have to dig up the road and replace pipe. So we'll give them an opportunity to go in there first and repair all the pipe. So again, this provides a good, stable, well-compacted base, and then asphalt is added as a top layer. Obviously, you're going to see increased costs due to the depth of the reclamation and added materials. Public Works Department maintains approximately 44 lane miles of roadway, and then based on engineers' assessments, current road conditions, we go out there every year and we go through every road. And also based on currently a capital fund balance of $255,000, the department has put together a 20-year road plan. This is a guide. This is a moving plan based on underground utilities, storms, and other obstacles. But this is a guide that will guide us over the next few years. It's important to note that many of the roads, let me just go to the large map here. This is important. Well, this is the Village of Tequesta and Loxahatchee River District underground lining and replacement projects list. So we will not go near these roads until all those underground utilities are addressed. Seabrook, Woodland, Pine Hill Trail, Country Club Drive, Starboard, Golfview, many areas throughout the village. Just to pull up the large map here, we basically broke the areas down, the road improvements down to 5 areas. And the goal is, again, this will be a moving target over the years to come, but Area 1, that would take approximately 4 years to complete that area, and so on until you get to year 5. However, it's important to note areas 4. There are some areas, some roads in Area 4 and Area 5 that may not necessarily need anything right now. They're on the radar, they're on the map, and again, that will move over time. If we have additional pipe breaks, whether it's water distribution pipe or stormwater, or we have sanitary sewer breaks, this will change and shift. But this gives us a template to move forward. This, the item in front of you tonight is for road improvement projects. We are recommending that we begin milling and paving, and this is all milling and paving with the exception of Cypress Drive all the way to the right. There are 2 catch basins that we're going to have to cut open the road, fix the base, and then make repairs to the road. So we're going to mill and pave on Venus Avenue, Mars Avenue, Saturn, Daly, Lee, Fiesta, And then Pine View Road, if you're not familiar with it, is interesting. That's a shared road between Jupiter and Tequesta. So we share the maintenance and responsibility for that road with Jupiter. So in your package tonight, we have a joint partnership agreement with Jupiter to share the cost, to split the cost to mill and pave Pine View. I have a couple of pictures here of just the condition of the roads out there. And so the contract, council approved the contract with Winn & Sons a couple of months ago. And so we received a proposal from Winn & Sons for a total project cost of $261,394.50. The village will invoice the town of Jupiter in the amount of $24,406 upon completion of the work. So the final cost to the village of Tequesta will be $236,988. Funding for these improvements was approved by Village Council in this year's budget in the amount of $255,000. And funding is available in the Capital Projects Fund 303. So it's my recommendation that we move forward and get back on schedule, and again, through a phased approach. It's been a couple years since we've milled and paved some roads and repaired some roads, and we just need to get back on track and just keep that moving. If additional funding becomes available, or Matt and I can combine on some of the underground utilities where it will impact the road, we can get some of those roads paved as well through some grants. To obtain grants just for roads is very difficult. We're working with the Palm Beach County Transportation Authority to try to chase down some grants for connectivity. So if we're working in the area and we're adding some new sidewalks, we're adding some crosswalks, we're adding enhancements to the community for the residents, and if the road is impacted by the project, we can get portions of the road funded as well. So we're working on those things as well.
This doesn't include any curbs, does it?
This will include, yes, this project will include the flush concrete header curb.
For all sections?
On where each cross street meets Tequesta Drive, so we eliminate that edge of road falling apart along Tequesta Drive, and also on Pine View. So anytime we intersect a major road, we'll have a flush concrete header curb.
Okay.
Yeah. And we just completed one I showed you here back on Village Boulevard.
Yep. Yeah, looks good.
Yeah.
I'm excited for you to get started.
Absolutely.
I know you've been done. You know what I can really appreciate is how you are constantly reevaluating all the roads in the different communities. Rather than focusing on one community, you're making sure that roads are going to be on the list according to their wear and tear, and that they are constantly changing.
Right, and
I
like
can
I
appreciate
mentioned,
that.
there's a lot of roads that are at the same stages of deterioration. So, you know, we'll have to carefully pick and choose where we go, but a shared approach as well.
Doug, when you were talking about some of the issues that cause deterioration of the roads along the borders, I know you're putting in header curbs in certain areas.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a broader need for header curbs, more widely used throughout the road system?
There are areas in the country club that are heavily traveled.
My corner.
We've heard, yeah.
Okay.
Gulfview Drive.
So you're looking at that as you
Yeah.
get to the point of addressing those areas?
And you can see it. I mean, if you drive down the road, you'll see the edge of the road it's crumbled.
Okay.
And
But you're not advocating adoption of header curbs throughout the entire community at this point?
No,
Okay.
just where we see the need, and you know, what'll be helpful as well, I know Matt is working on a swale program. So typically what happens, you know, you have a crown, the road is crowned, water rolls off the road, and if you don't have a defined swale, it sits on the edge of the road. And then you have cars constantly driving on the edge of the road into the grass and wearing away the edge of the road, the stability of the base and the right-of-way. So as Matt begins fixing the underground utilities and works on the swale improvements, that'll also help get the water off the road into the swales.
Makes me think of when people drive down the flooded roads and they go, psh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you're technically watering someone's yard.
Yep.
Well, like our neighborhood was built, you know, my house was built in 1960. You know, so, I mean, those are 60 years old in there, the utilities and stuff are old. But you can see a lot of depressions and stuff where there's leaks and stuff in the stormwater system throughout. I mean, we'll have big puddles of water and stuff down through there, so it's certainly coming.
Yep.
One quick question, the completion of the sidewalk on Country Club, Loxahatchee was going to be doing some work, as I recall.
Yeah, but that will not impact Phase 2 on Country Club Drive. I just got back today, the Phase 2 drawings.
Okay.
To relocate a couple catch basins in the sidewalk.
Okay.
And we moved to a new contract, but we're ready to go. I'm meeting with Kimley Horn tomorrow.
Okay.
And we'll get those drawings to the contractor. They'll quote the project based on the new contract rates and bring it back to council for approval.
Sounds good.
Yeah. So
Okay.
the goal is to get the roads done this year, Phase 2 Country Club Drive. The bridge is most likely going to start Tuesday, the sidewalk on the bridge. And then next month, I'm also bringing back to you a contract to grind approximately over 650 locations, sidewalk around the village.
Any additional comments from council?
No, I'm good, thank you.
One thing I'll say, I like the fact that we're reviewing this, and if we can, you know, maybe with facilities and roads and pipes, it's just good to annually get the annual report.
Yeah.
What's going
Public
on?
comment?
Mayor.
Public comment?
Do we have Mr. Bradford? Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hey, it's Tom Bradford, 44 Chestnut Trail. I'm all in favor of what Doug wants to do. I'm not here to disturb that. I just want to point out to you a couple of things. Most of you don't live, I live in Tequesta Pines, and you have to traverse up Seabrook Road to get there. There's an inordinate number of depressions in Tequesta Pines and on Seabrook Road. And particularly if you're at the if you're westbound on Tequesta Drive, turning to the north onto Seabrook, you have to literally crawl because the depression is so bad there. I think it has to do with the drainage pipe, but I'm not sure. And then there's one that's getting apparently larger by the day that runs from the mini mart next to the Lighthouse School of Art studio, whatever they call it. And it appears it's getting worse every day, and it feels like it's getting worse every day. And then there's the Pines itself. I think that was all caused by the heavy rainfall I heard Matt mention that we had in 2020. But then there's one other thing. The Loxahatchee River District, when they went into the Tequesta Pines, they had to do some repairs just like Matt had to do. Most of theirs have never been paved. They've got cutouts and they're just filled with what we call millings.
Yeah, they're not lined yet.
I don't know what they're doing, but we're getting tired of no pavement. And then the Pines itself, in and around their manholes, is just terrible depressions. And so I just wanted y'all to know about it and I'm on the board of the Pines HOA, and we're not happy with it. I know it's not necessarily your fault, but I just wanted you folks to be aware of it, that's all. So, FYI.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Just to let you know.
Doug, we got all this on our radar at this point?
Absolutely. Mr. Bradford is 100% correct. We had that storm event last year. It created a lot of hardship for us in the Pines, not only with our stormwater pipe, but Loxahatchee. Loxahatchee has been going around and putting those millings in the road because they know they still have to get in there and pave. But that's one of those situations, again, where it's cost effective not to dig up the road and replace pipe. You're going to line the pipe. But it does not address the compaction and density of your road. So we're going to have to go back at some point, do an open cut repair or a full reclamation.
Wouldn't they be responsible for that?
It still makes sense to line the pipe rather than digging up the whole road and do an open cut repair or full depth reclamation. We're going to have to go into some of those areas that Mr. Bradford mentioned that are on the list here and do some core sampling and figure out exactly how far we might have to go in there in an open cut or a full depth reclamation. That's going to be more expensive, obviously. It's just a simple mill and pave.
Wouldn't their failure of their pipe, which caused damage to our road, be their responsibility to bring it flush?
the areas that they're working in, they will do that. They'll do an open cut repair, yes.
There's not any CMP pipe in there, in the ground anywhere for the stormwater system, is there, for road crossing?
You still have corrugated metal pipe in the pines?
The stormwater linings that were.
No, is there any CMP pipe?
Yeah, so the stormwater, I'm sorry, the stormwater linings that were brought earlier this evening are lining the balance of the corrugated metal pipe within the system. The Tequesta Pines is all 1970s era corrugated metal pipe.
Now, with it being CMP pipe like that, the lining, and obviously you have confidence in it. I mean, because a lot of times I've seen it to where it's so deteriorated, there's really nothing hardly to line. And so, I mean, so when you line it, is the liner going to be strong enough to withstand time, or is it a temporary patch with lining the CMP pipe?
Yeah, that's a really good question. The CIPP liner, the cured in place pipe liner, is actually designed to be fully structural in that it's a, you could take the host pipe out and it's still, it's fully structural in and of itself.
So y'all TV the line prior to lining it, of course, and look at the condition of it, and then you go in and line it?
Yes, sir, pre and post, before and then after.
Okay, all right.
And I think the swell that you're talking to Mr. Bradford by the mini mart was a lined project as well.
And Seabrook, when you first turn off Tequesta Drive as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
This past year.
We're gonna have an open cut repair there.
There's one little segment that's remaining to be lined that was also part of what was approved tonight. That's next to between the mini, there's a manhole or catch basin there between the mini marts and the art center, and that's what's causing that one there, and that was also part of what was approved tonight.
Okay, thank you, man. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Do we have a motion to move forward on the roadway improvement project?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? None? Okay, we come to the final item this evening, and it's the government assemblies, and I want to thank Jeremy and Lori for actually putting together an explanation of what each of these groups do. I know in the past, when we sat down and talked about this, that's always been one of the questions, what exactly do these folks do that we're volunteering to participate with? So I know, Lori, this was on your, it's under your name, but if you want to just kind of walk us through each one, and we'll see who wants to volunteer, put their foot forward.
So the Palm Beach County League of Cities General Membership Meeting rotates around the county and is hosted by various cities. It's an hour and a half commitment. Lunch starts at 11:30 a.m. with meeting and program at noon. Municipalities and business owners attend. I believe Keith is, aren't you like the attorney for this group here?
We're general counsel for the league, and unfortunately, since COVID, we've just been
Zooming.
Having teleconferences. We haven't met in person since February of 2020, but we're hoping to get back to it.
And then they have an educational component to the meeting as well towards the end. So currently it's Vice Mayor Stone and Abby was the alternate, so I'm looking for someone to attend and then have an alternate.
Did you want to continue, or?
I mean, I can continue to go to that if necessary. I know that this was a lot of Zooming. I didn't participate in a lot of them.
Okay.
So if anybody wants to participate in that, that'd be great. If not, I will.
Would you rather be the alternate versus?
I'd rather be the alternate, yeah.
Okay. I mean, I'll volunteer to be the primary on this one. Okay, so Vice Mayor will be the alternate, I'll be the primary.
Okay, perfect. And then the Florida League of Cities, this is just their annual conference. It rotates between Orlando and Hollywood each year. 3 days of meetings, presentations, and vendors. I've actually attended this meeting from this conference from time to time, and it's very good. What the person who was appointed to this does is the League of Cities annually puts forth their set of resolutions, and they come before council for review first, and then that person is a voting member on the resolutions.
But attendance and participation is open to everyone on the council, so it's not just limited to the lead person, so.
But there's a voting person.
Yes.
Right. one
Yes.
voting person,
I think
but
so.
anybody can, any of the five.
And I know that's traditionally been the mayor, so I'm happy to take that.
Palm Beach County-wide Coastal Council, I don't know much about this, so I'll let Lori.
This is the one that they haven't met in a long time. And I don't believe they've met since I was appointed to it. So Deborah and I couldn't even figure out. There wasn't much even you could find online.
Well, one thing Jeremy and I had talked about with respect to these is if we don't feel there's any value, if we don't, as a group, collectively think there's a value in being represented, I think we're okay in just saying, fine. Like in this case, where you're saying they're not meeting, we can keep it on the list, but we'll just leave the names blank, unless it's something you want to, continue to.
I mean, it's fine. I mean, they haven't really
Right.
done much.
I mean, I guess if they emerged, we could have,
Yep.
we could
We can
identify
reevaluate
somebody
it.
to represent us, but yeah, a couple of these, it sounds like they haven't really been meeting very much, and I'm not sure how much value we've really gotten out of them.
Just
So-
don't leave it as is.
You want to leave this one as is?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so Brandon.
Are you fine with that?
I'm very
Bruce,
fine
you're
with that.
Okay.
Well, I agree with your comment. If there's no value, let's.
Well, we could still have somebody assigned to it just in case they come after the game or something happens, but the expectation would be that we're not really expecting to hear or see much from them.
And I have to apologize, Matt did give me a short description on the Waxahachie River Management Coordinating Council, and it didn't make this actual publication, but Deandra serves as the representative, and Matt Hammond, I have him as the alternate.
I'd be happy to have somebody else.
What is that now? Oh, Lord, here we go.
Matt, you thought you were done,
Here we
didn't
go.
you?
So since I've come on board, I've been attending those. I believe Councilmember Arena was the primary, and then I've been attending them as the alternate. It's an advisory body that of stakeholders in the Waxahachie River Basin. They prepare a what is it called? Reasonable assurance plan was the most recent thing, which is essentially a document that was submitted to DEP that says we know there's impairments in the Waxahachie River, in the North Fork, and here's what we're working on to address that with the goal of going through this effort so that they don't come down on all of the stakeholders with a TMDL, which has that total maximum daily load, which then has a lot of repercussions where it's kind of voluntarily saying, we know there's issues, here's what we're doing, don't punish us. That's really kind of the main thing that I've seen that they've been doing. There was also the Scenic River Plan, Wild and Scenic River Plan that was recently completed, but it's mostly related to water quality improvements that stakeholders are voluntarily completing for the North Fork of the Waxahachie River.
And there's nothing saying that you can't appoint Matt as the primary.
Well,
manager, but,
yeah, I was gonna
since
say
he does
that-
attend all of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want to be the primary, and then we'll have somebody volunteer as the alternate? We got a volunteer?
Well, it sounds interesting, but I don't think I'm qualified.
You're the most qualified.
So is,
Don't be shy.
Bruce, so that's you?
No.
I'm not gonna lie, that's a really difficult time for me, that
Okay.
time frame of the Monday.
When is it?
It is the
Two.
fourth Monday of the month at 2.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be the primary?
I'm happy to serve in whatever capacity that works for the.
It's every month, last Monday of the month, you said?
Fourth Monday of the month at 2. And obviously the village.
And where's it located?
I'm sorry?
Where's it, the meeting at?
Right now, they've been
At
all
the River Center, I know
remote.
this one.
Most cases when they have been in person has been over at Waxahachie River Districts, has hosted it in most cases. sometimes at the River Center off of US 1 near Burt Reynolds, sometimes over at their offices.
I'll do the primary on it.
Okay.
Primary or secondary?
Or,
You know me.
well, Matt's been attending regularly, so do you, but you want to take the primary spot? And have
Well, you
Matt?
said you would really like to do the alternate, right, when you first started talking about it? Did I misunderstand you?
I'm happy to serve in whatever capacity that's.
You sound like the way you want to get out of.
All right, well, so you volunteered to do the primary, so.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Your primary, Matt, you'll continue as the alternate then.
Anytime y'all can't attend a meeting, if you just let the clerk's office know, we'll let the alternate know.
Okay.
So that you can give us enough time.
Right.
Okay, so the
We'll
next
call
one
it
is
at 1:30.
the Intergovernmental Coordination Program, and that's usually held at Juno Beach Town Hall. The sitting District 1 Commissioner holds the meeting. Currently, it was Maria Marino. Each municipality attends and gives a brief overview of what's going on in their city, and also includes a speaker, for example, the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. Usually that's about an hour and a half. That time is at 9:30, and so we have Brandon as the primary and
Abby as backup.
Brennan was the alternate.
That's got your name all over, Frank.
I'll take the primary. Laura, you want to be the alternate?
I will be the alternate.
All right.
Next up is the Northern Palm Beaches Cultural Alliance, and I'm not sure if they're even meeting.
They are.
They are, okay. So this is actually a fun group of people, but they used to be anyways. Represents an array of cultural venues and organizations to serve, to inspire residents and visitors to the cultural arts growing in our areas, from theater, music, historical landmarks. And we have Brandon is the primary, and Deb Telsford attends as the alternate. And I know that she does enjoy that.
If you guys wouldn't mind, I'd like to stay on that one.
That's fine.
Okay.
Jeremy,
So-
you good with them?
Yeah, that's fine.
So we'll
And
do-
also our Tequesta Lighthouse Art Center is also a member, so we basically
Okay.
have like double Tequesta representation.
Representation, okay.
Mhm.
Sounds good.
So anytime they're doing events or we're doing something.
Okay.
So the Palm Beach North Chamber Business Before Hours, I'm not really sure, this was added a couple of years ago. Anybody can attend that, and we are a member of the chamber, so anybody can attend the before hours and after hours. So honestly, I don't know that we really need to appoint primary and an alternate, but y'all can if you wish. No?
Kyle, you've been
I mean,
attending some of those, right?
I'd volunteer
yeah.
for that, to be the primary on that one.
Is that one, okay.
The before hours?
The before hours, yeah.
Molly, do you attend many of those?
I've been to one. But I
I've been a
don't
member of the
think
chamber, but I've never
They're
attended
good.
anything here.
They're good. They're usually a big crowd.
Yeah.
It's a nice
Yeah.
breakfast. There's 200 people maybe, if not more.
So you're going to stay on as the alternate on this
Yeah,
one?
no, I enjoy going when they were doing them. I know they just restarted.
And after hours, Bruce, we have you on here from last year, and nobody was an alternate.
Okay.
They shut that down, but I think they're starting it back up.
And then we have the Palm Beach Chamber Economic Development Committee.
I would enjoy doing that, I think.
The Economic Development Committee?
Mhm.
Okay. Let's see.
So right now, we've got Kyle as primary and you're the alternate. You guys want to switch?
Fair enough. On that, pal.
I'll
Or
be
you
the-
want to just be
I enjoy it.
co-primaries?
I know that we're doing a handful of things, being storm ready and a couple of projects, but there's some
That's
good stuff.
fine.
There's some good stuff. And what's coming up project-wise too.
I got plenty to do. I mean, you
All right.
go ahead and hang in there if you want to. I'll be the alternate if you want to do it.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, so leave it the same? Okay. Palm Beach North Chamber Governmental Affairs.
Yep.
Deamber was attending this as primary, Brennan was the alternate.
And I will continue as primary unless somebody would like to supplant me.
And you can put me as alternate.
Okay.
Note on that one, there is a meeting first thing in the morning for that one. The Commissioner Marino and McKinley will both be on that, talking about legislative, so probably be informative. I'm signed up to jump on that if I can,
Oh, that's
but
fine.
it'd be very informative for.
Hey, the more the merrier.
It's a Zoom, so it's pretty easy to
Yeah.
jump on there.
And the next one is the environmental affairs, and we have Brandon as the primary, and Jessica Namath is the alternate. I'm not sure that she was needed to attend that. I'm not sure Jessica has needed to attend as an alternate.
Not usually.
So, y'all had asked that there be a representative from EAC as the alternate on that. So you want to remain, Lori, or?
I would like to, if everyone else is okay with that.
Everyone good with Jessica continuing?
Yep.
Basically what that is too is they're just each municipality in the area, as well as a few other, it's always like a FPL representative type aspect. Everyone's just kind of always sharing what they're working on to be more environmentally conscious and helping Florida stay sustainable, which then ties into EAC a lot of times, and kind of just sharing ideas, how we can all be better.
And then we have the no-wake extension of Intercoastal Waterway. Frank has been the primary on that. We did not have an alternate.
Yeah, there's been some movement on that, although the group that was meeting formally hasn't really been meeting regularly, but there is some movement on this issue, and I'll continue to stay in touch with this.
Did you want to put an alternate or just leave it primary?
If somebody wants to be an alternate, that'd be great.
I just don't think anyone stepped up last time.
I don't think they did either.
Well, I would,
You want to do it?
no, but if there's not an alternate and for some reason the primary can't make it, just send an email and maybe.
Yeah, we can do that.
Well, Molly just said
Yeah,
Oh, Molly's
yeah,
gonna do it.
she's an alternate, but-
So then you have the Environmental Advisory Committee, and actually the resolution says Environmental Committee, I'm not sure how advisory, but I know that it's Advisory Committee. And Brandon has been serving, and she does attend every meeting.
I'm assuming you want to continue?
I would like to.
Okay.
And we do not have an alternate on that.
I'll be the alternate on that.
There you go.
Okay.
Environmental stuff.
Okay, these are the following organizations that require a voting delegate. So we already did the Palm Beach County League of Cities, which would be Frank. And let's put an alternate. We had an alternate last year, just in case, Frank is not able to attend that. That's the Palm Beach County League of Cities conference, when you vote on the voting member for the resolution committee.
He's alternate.
And then we have the Florida League of Cities. Oh wait, I apologize. Palm Beach County. What is Palm Beach County? That was the Florida League of Cities is where we have the resolution.
Right.
So and Frank is the. I've already said you do that, so we would need an alternate for that.
I don't mind being an alternate.
Okay.
And that.
So for the Palm Beach County, it's myself and Molly?
Yes.
And then for the Florida, it's myself and
Yes.
Kyle? Okay.
So, and then there's these other disbanded committees and or just other capacities that are still going on.
Do we need to add the business liaison committee with the chamber? Is that something, where we're at on that?
With the Chamber of Commerce, or just what our business forum that we're doing?
Just our business forum, just to, that way we have some.
I think all the council's been kind of coming for that input, so I mean, if you want to delegate somebody to be that liaison, if the council will do that, I don't see why it would hurt. That way there's, kind of a one person that can help coordinate versus all the council trying to,
I guess I'd like to continue to be that liaison, but I think we should have someone annually be.
No,
in that
I
position.
agree, and I think previously the council had basically endorsed you as that individual, and I would certainly support you continuing in that role.
And you want an alternate?
Everybody agree?
Yes.
Yeah, it'd be great if there's an alternate.
I'm going to try and come, but
I mean,
unfortunately.
I do come to them to at least listen.
Yeah.
They're good.
But Mrs. Zung, do you want to, it's right in the middle of the day. It's usually like 2 p.m.
Yeah, I've been attending them when I can.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
I mean, I'll continue to do that.
You want to be the alternate?
Sure. Sign me up.
Well, it's the kind of thing that if any of us are available to come, I think that's actually a good thing.
It's
because it's obvious it's focused on our community, so.
Yep.
I did that just in case more than one of you
Good.
show up, so I just noticed that I'm gonna give minutes.
Okay,
That's all.
that concludes our agenda, so I'm going to have the dubious distinction, I think, for the first meeting of having the longest council meeting. Do I
Do you have
have,
any other matters?
oh, that's right, do we have any other matters? I'm sorry, I was trying to move it along. Do we have any other matters? Anybody have anything they'd like to bring up?
Huh?
Lori?
The only thing I have to say is I heard some disappointing comment earlier from Mr. Prince that this might be your last year, and hopefully that is not the case. Because I think you added an enormous amount of value in today's meeting, and I'd like to see you
Well,
continue
I
on.
appreciate your comment, very well taken. You know, I don't know what I'm gonna be doing in a year. I mean, it's a long way away and stuff, but, you know, we'll just have to look at it again in a year and see if I can, you know, devote the time to it. And that's the key, you know, is being able to devote the time to it and stuff. It's a personal commitment stuff, so, you know, if I can allow myself to, you know, that amount of time, then I'd certainly, you know, entertain the idea of, you know, running again.
You may have a bunch of us trying to talk you into it. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Great job. I love that you had already looked at the number of the interview cost side.
That's why it's not annoying person in that one.
No, it's perfect.